Experts say it is crucial for both countries to exercise restraint to avert the further escalation of this crisis.
That was Daniel Khan reporting from Islamabad. Houthi rebels in Iraq claim to have carried out a missile attack against an American cargo ship, striking the vessel. Houthi military spokesperson Brigadier Yahya Sari says the attack took place in the Gulf of Aden.
The naval forces of the Yemeni armed forces have carried out a targeting operation against a U.S. ship, Ranger, in the Gulf of Aden, using a number of suitable naval missiles. The hit was precise and direct.
It remains unclear exactly when that purported attack occurred. The spokesperson said the attack was in retaliation to strikes by the United States against the Houthis. The U.S. Central Command said the latest U.S.-led strikes destroyed 2 Houthi anti-ship missiles that were aimed into the southern Red Sea and prepared to launch. Sarah Coates has more from Tel Aviv.
The United States has confirmed this 5th round of strikes against Houthi assets in just the space of a week. It says that the Yemen-based rebel group fired yet again on another U.S.-owned ship in the Red Sea. And despite Houthi claims, CENTCOM says there were no injuries. There was no damage to their ship. And look, this Red Sea international shipping route has really been targeted by the Houthis since November. The Yemen-based group says that it will continue. This is, of course, despite this U.S. designation as a terror organization. It will continue until Israel pulls out of Gaza. Now, China has also weighed in. It says it is monitoring this situation in that Red Sea shipping channel. The Houthis say that they will allow safe passage for not only Chinese ships, but also Russian ships, but added that any ships connected to Israel or traveling to Israel will continue to be targeted.
That was Sarah Coates reporting. A Chinese expert says the European Union is seeking strategic independence in tackling the mounting tension in the Red Sea by planning an independent naval mission instead of joining the U.S.-led coalition. Washington formed the Prosperity Guardian Coalition in December in response to the Houthi attacks in the Red Sea. Several EU diplomats have said many EU countries have agreed to form an independent naval mission as early as next month. Jen with the Beijing Foreign Studies University highlighted the EU's quest for strategic autonomy and prioritizing self-determination in defense matters.
Europe wants to conduct the Red Sea escort mission independently. This indicates Europe's desire to make its own decisions in strengthening defense capabilities and achieving security and autonomy, and take the safety matters in their own hands.
The EU now holds different ideas with the U.S. on many issues, including the Palestine-Israel conflict.
On the Palestine-Israel conflict, most European countries hold different stances with the United States. As for tension in the Red Sea, European countries believe the most pressing need is to calm the tense situation instead of adding fuel to the fire.
Tensions have escalated in the Red Sea following U.S.-led airstrikes on Houthi military targets after repeated Houthi attacks on commercial shipping. The Houthis claim that the attacks were in response to the ongoing Israeli military campaign in the Gaza Strip. The United States has launched a new round of strikes against Houthi anti-ship missiles aimed at the Red Sea. A Houthi spokesperson says the forces carried out a missile attack against the U.S. cargo ship in the Gulf of Aden. The spokesperson says the attacks came in retaliation to strikes by the U.S. Meanwhile, in the Gaza Strip, Israeli forces advanced into the southern city of Khan Yunis. Heavy fighting was reported near Nasser Hospital, the biggest hospital still functioning in the enclave. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has told his U.S. allies that he objects to any Palestinian statehood. The United Nations says it's deeply concerned by ongoing attacks on civilian infrastructure and the safety of civilians in the northeast of Syria. UN spokesperson Stefan Dujarric said the situation's deteriorating.
Over the past week, multiple airstrikes at Al-Hasake have led to civilian casualties and caused significant damage to several facilities, including power stations and oil production fields, which could negatively impact the availability of gas, fuel, and electricity going forward.
Dujarric said more than 1,500 family tents have been damaged by floods over the past 2 weeks, including shelters provided to survivors of last year's devastating earthquakes. And huge amounts of assistance and supplies are needed.
Humanitarian partners report also that tents in Afrin and Southwind are particularly affected by persistent rainfall. They said that additional shelter, food, ground insulation, heating materials, road repairs are all urgently needed. Muddy conditions are disrupting children's access to schools and families' ability to reach critical services within the displacement camps.
And also stressed that the humanitarian response is being significantly underfunded. Well, families of victims of the deadly school shooting in Uvalde, Texas, have expressed frustration and division after the Justice Department released a report revealing what it describes as cascading failures in law enforcement's response to the massacre. Brett Cross, whose nephew was killed in the tragedy, said that he hopes the investigation shows the community what happened that day.
Maybe y'all will start taking us seriously now instead of telling us to sweep it under the rug and not doing a damn thing about it. We need our community. It's hard enough waking up every day and to walk out on these streets and walk to an HEB or drive to an HEB and see a cop that was sitting there while our babies were murdered and bleeding out.
The report catalogs a sweeping array of problems in police training, communication, leadership, and technology. Federal officials say contributed to the crisis lasting far longer than necessary. The shooting at Robb Elementary School in May of 2022 killed 19 children and 2 staff members. At the time of the attack, terrified students inside classrooms called 911 and agonized parents begged officers to go in. As Uvalde struggles with trauma, is divided on the issue of accountability. District Attorney Christina Mitchell is considering whether to bring criminal charges. Tennessee's reported at least 14 deaths led to a severe winter storm that's blanketed much of the state in snow and sent temperatures plummeting. Roaming shelters have opened all across Tennessee as more snow is expected. In Nashville, community worker Bill Compton is canvassing the city's downtown to provide winter weather supplies.
So on those nights, we get a group of volunteers and staff people as needed to canvass the downtown area and check on people who are sitting outside, make sure they have warming supplies that they need to survive, offer rides to shelter, and just in general educate them about their shelter options if they decide to go in later.
Temperatures plunged to minus 18 degrees Celsius in parts of the state. The storms have also forced some schools and government offices to close. 28 minutes past the hour. Checking the forecast ahead of the break, and Beijing is down to minus 5 degrees on Friday evening. Saturday, we'll see some cloudy conditions, the high reaching 0 on the day. Nanchang will see light rainfall with a low of 6 to 9. Tomorrow's overcast and the high is 8 in Asia. Elsewhere in Asia, Islamabad's 4 this evening, sunny and 19 on Saturday. Vientiane's at 20 overnight. Tomorrow, cloudy conditions, the high is 33. Phnom Penh's 23 this evening, followed by cloudy skies and 35 degrees. In Africa, Nairobi will see a light rainfall with a high of 28 degrees Celsius on Saturday. Kampala will have a light rain with a low of 21 this evening. The rain continues through the day tomorrow with a high of 26. The food is at 22 tonight. Tomorrow, sunny conditions and 28. It's time for a short break. So far this hour, China and Brazil are expressing willingness to enhance bilateral relations following 5 decades of diplomatic ties. The UN expresses concern over the exchange of military strikes between Pakistan and Iran. And the U.S. report outlines cascading failures in law enforcement during a school shooting in Texas nearly 2 years ago. And Shane Biggin will stay with us here on the Beijing Hour.
Experience the musical classics of the East. Mingle with the masters of Chinese music.
的这种美召唤了女性。
Music talks. Witness the sound of antiquity and modernity.
We all enter this world with a universal greeting. With a learn to speak. Though our languages, cultures, and traditions may differ, we still share one thing in common. We have hope for humanity and the world. Railway company Deutsche
International Monetary Fund.
Hear the difference with CGTN Radio. Join our global network to connect with the world.
CGTN Radio. The difference.
I love you. 我爱你. This might be the easiest way to say I love you, since there are so many other romantic expressions. No matter if you're a rookie,
你好，我的中文
or a sophisticated learner.
我来北京5年了，我是本地人。
There is definitely something that will interest you. Check out Take Away Chinese, a word that starts with
Examining the events that impact and shape China and the rest of the world. This is the Beijing Hour. 1 hour of news and information brought to you every weekday. Now here's your host.
Shane Begumati on last Friday. Still to come. In business, China pledges greater efforts to promote new energy vehicles. In sports, the Chinese team faces toughest opponent at the Australian Open. In culture and entertainment, the stage version in Beijing of a classic Hollywood movie. To contact us, you can email radio@cgtn.com or follow our X account. I'm on Twitter @CGTN Radio. First of all, with today's headline news, here's Wang Zheng.
Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi has expressed the country's readiness to enhance partnership with Brazil. Wang Yi met his Brazilian counterpart Mauro Vieira in Brasilia, adding that the two sides should take the 50th anniversary of diplomatic ties as an opportunity for high-level exchanges in the next phase. He also said, as the biggest developing countries in the eastern and western hemispheres, China and Brazil should strengthen unity and cooperation to jointly tackle global challenges. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has spoken highly of the extensive high-level cooperation between Russia and China. During his annual press conference on Russia's foreign policy, Lavrov highlighted the effectiveness of the Russia-China comprehensive strategic partnership with coordination.
Our relations with China are booming in all fields. Taking economic cooperation as an example, the bilateral trade volume between Russia and China exceeded the set target of $200 billion in 2023. This development momentum will continue.
Lavrov also noted that Russia and China are strengthening bilateral ties in the cultural and education sectors. 2024 to provide opportunities for dialogue at various levels. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has expressed deep concern over the recent exchange of military strikes between Iran and Pakistan. Spokesperson Stefan Dujarric said Guterres urged both countries to exercise maximum restraint to avoid a further escalation of tensions. Yemen's Houthi group claims to have carried out a missile attack against an American cargo ship. A spokesperson with the group says the attack took place in the Gulf of Aden.
The naval forces of the Yemeni armed forces have carried out a targeting operation against a U.S. ship, Chen Ranger, in the Gulf of Aden, using a number of suitable naval missiles. The hit was precise and direct.
It remains unclear exactly when the purported attack occurred. The spokesperson said the attack was a retaliatory move against the U.S. Meantime, the U.S. Central Command says the latest U.S.-led strikes has destroyed 2 Houthi anti-ship missiles. North Korea has tested an underwater nuclear weapon system in its eastern waters. The Korean Central News Agency says the test was in response to joint naval exercises by the United States, South Korea, and Japan. Election officials in Washington state have confirmed that Donald Trump's name will remain on the Republican presidential primary ballot. It came after a state judge dismissed a lawsuit to try to disqualify him based on the 14th Amendment, which bars anyone who engaged in insurrection from holding public office. Although similar complaints have been filed in dozens of states, so far only Colorado and Maine have removed Trump from the ballots. A U.S. House committee has approved a bill to create a bipartisan commission that will tackle the country's soaring debt and make policy recommendations to Congress. The federal government's increasing level of debt is now at more than $34 trillion. Representative Jody Arrington from Texas says they have to intervene.
People need to understand the magnitude of this problem. They need to understand how much worse it's getting, catastrophic and even irreparable the consequences can be if we don't intervene.
The bill will ask the Commission to recommend ways to balance the budget at the earliest possible date. It also calls for improving the long-term solvency of Medicare, Social Security and other programs paid for through trust funds. Tens of thousands of public sector workers have launched a 24-hour strike in Northern Ireland, protesting the political deadlock that has left them without pay increases.
What do we want? When do we want it? One of the lowest paid midwives in the UK. And there's no reason why that should be the case.
Probably get a ball, probably get fairness. Everybody else is getting the cost in time. The strike is the biggest walkout in years in Northern Ireland, with about 150,000 teachers, nurses, bus drivers and others hitting the picket line. The regional government has not functioned for almost 2 years since one of the two power-sharing parties walked out in a dispute over post-Brexit trade rules.
Thank you very much. That was Once a Hungry Headline News. This is Shane Beckham in the Chinese capital. Coming up in business, China pledges greater efforts to promote new energy vehicles.
The Zimbabwean government is advising farmers to sort crops due to drought years. The southern African country has experienced a short and intense burning season disrupted by the El Nino phenomenon. This week on Climate Watch, we delve into the challenges faced by Zimbabwe's agricultural sector amidst the unexpected weather anomalies. Subscribe to Climate Watch on your favorite podcast platforms.
47 past the hour. Kind of business, and here's Ken.
Thank you, Shane. The Chinese mainland market closed lower on Friday, buying at more. The Shanghai Composite Index lost 0.47%, while the Shenzhen Component Index was 0.68% down. China is likely ramping up efforts to rescue the market after some exchange-traded funds tracking key indices saw daily turnover spikes, suggesting state-backed funds may be lending support. Coal stocks and the photovoltaic industry led the declines, dropping 1.9% and 2.3% respectively. Backing the downward trend, stocks related to Apple's supply chain gained, with Foxconn Industrial Internet dropping 5.6% and luxury precision industry rising 2.2%. The Chinese electronic chemical producer estimates its 2023 net profit soared to 100 to 238% year-on-year, to 160 million yuan to 180 million yuan. That was 1A in Shanghai. In Hong Kong, the Hang Seng Index dropped over 0.5%. In Japan, the Nikkei increased 1.4%. China's top economic regulator has pledged more efforts to promote new energy vehicles and foster high-quality development of the industry. Last year, NEVs accounted for nearly 32% of total vehicle deliveries in China, up 6 points from the previous year. Jing Shandong, with the National Development and Reform Commission, has plans to facilitate the industry's high-quality development, include pro-consumption measures, technological innovation, and infrastructure.
The first is to accelerate the optimization of policies and measures to promote sales of NEVs, encourage the purchase and use of NEVs in rural areas, and expand coverage in public use. The second is to accelerate the NEV's technological innovation and improve the level of electrification with intelligent technology. The third is to accelerate the construction of a high-quality charging infrastructure system, improve operation and service, so as to provide strong support for the development of the new energy vehicle industry.
China has built over 8.5 million charging facilities for NEV, ranking first in the world. The Chinese Ministry of Industry and Information Technology has outlined several major tasks for the coming year. One of them is to keep promoting the high-quality development and large-scale application of the industrial internet. Dr. Yi has details.
When we talk about China's high-quality development, we have to talk about China's industrial progress as a key factor. And in 2023, China's industrial economy actually is on track of recovery, and the ICT industry has also seen a rapid development. So data from the Ministry of Industry and Information Technology, or NIT, shows that the industrial output rose 4.6% year-on-year in 2023, and the overall scale of the manufacturing industry has remained on top worldwide for 14 consecutive years. And industrial enterprises has either narrowed
since April last year, so it allows many of them to expand their production. So we see electric machinery and also automobiles recording double-digit growth last year. We see China produced over 30 million cars in 2023, and it sold 30 million cars as well. So the export of EVs, lithium batteries, and solar cells all combined surpassing 1 trillion yuan. So that is something that China's achieved for the first time ever. And the authorities also that they've been working on fostering new driving forces as well. We see emerging industries like new materials and robotics rapidly growing, and in terms of the ICT industry, revenue of telecom services in China in 2023 grew by over 6%, and China's built over 3 million 5G base stations as computing power has reigned steadily. So China is on its path to pursue what it calls the new industrialization, which basically means it's shifting that production model to a more technology-driven and more sustainable one. And so officials believe that because of China's massive market skills and its complete industrial system and information infrastructure, the country can actually sustain that momentum in the following months.
That was reporting. Chinese authorities say the country has remained the world's top manufacturing hub for 14 consecutive years. According to the Ministry of Industry and Information Technology, the country's industrial economy improved in 2023, and the information and communication industry grew faster. Last year, the total value added of industrial enterprises above the designated 5 increased by 4.6%. Among them, the added value of manufacturing enterprises above designated 5 increased by 5%. Industrial enterprises above the designated 5 are those with an annual revenue from principal business of at least 20 million yuan, or about $2.8 billion. The Chinese Ministry of Industry and Information Technology says the country has positioned itself to become the world's top auto exporter. Last year, China's auto exports skyrocketed by nearly 58% to a record-breaking 4.9 million vehicles. The China Association of Automobile Manufacturers estimates that the auto production and sales can both reach 31 million units this year. Both the production and sales of new energy vehicles are expected to reach 11.5 million, with a growth rate of approximately 20%. Hong Kong business industry insiders to take a closer look at the industry's latest development. 2023 saw record passenger vehicle exports from China, partly driven by the global demand for electric cars. BYD remains at the forefront of the trend, overtaking Tesla in the fourth quarter to become the world's top-selling pure electric vehicle brand. The engine company credits its success to a long-standing focus on electrification and substantial investments in technology.
As one of the first companies in the world to develop electric vehicles, BYD has more than 2 decades of experience. Core technologies across the entire supply chain, from battery and engines to control systems. With more than 90,000 research engineers, we've invested hundreds of billions of yuan in research and development over the years.
BYD has established a strong international presence, with products now available in 59 countries and regions. The first overseas factory for passenger vehicles in Thailand is set to begin production this year. What more can you tell us about your localization plans?
The Thailand factory can produce about 150,000 cars annually, catering to the entire ASEAN market. We are also building 3 new factories in Brazil and are set to start production in the second half of the year. Last month, we announced a new plant in Hungary. China is not only a global automotive giant in terms of quantity, but also quality. I believe China's vehicle exports will enjoy a new wave of opportunities to boost scale and brand awareness.
As countries worldwide implement regulations to cut fuel emissions, China is poised to meet increasing demand for new energy vehicles. China's substantial advantages and its cutthroat domestic market have propelled its products to outperform many Western legacy brands. UBS forecasts that Chinese car makers could control 33% of the global market by 2030, nearly double their share in 2022. That was Fangfei on China's auto industry. Technology took center stage at the World Economic Forum in Davos. At the panel on technology and humanity, OpenAI CEO Sam Altman said artificial intelligence comes with very high stakes, raising moral questions. Altman tried to temper concerns from AI skeptics. However, he admitted that ChatGPT will have to evolve in uncomfortable ways.
It's easy to imagine with this one that it's going to have massive effects on the world and that it could go wrong. The technological direction that we've been trying to push it in is one that we think we can make safe, and that includes a lot of things. We believe in iterative deployment, so we put this technology out into the world along the way so people get used to it, so we have time as a society, our institutions have time to have these discussions, figure out how to regulate this, how to put some guardrails in place.
The CEO also says institutions need to figure out how to regulate the use of AI technologies. Generative AI systems such as ChatGPT have captivated the world by being able to rapidly spit out images, writing, and computer code. The China's Commerce Ministry has listed schools of innovation achievements in the country's pilot free trade zones. The ministry says the achievements have contributed to the stability of foreign trade and foreign investment and the high-quality development of industries. The fifth batch of best practices mainly focuses on aspects such as trade facilitation, resources and production theft assurance, and high-quality industrial development. The third batch of reform experiences mainly cover fields including foreign investment access, technological innovation, environmental protection, and finance. The ministry also says the achievements have facilitated enhanced collaboration and exchange of best practices among different regions.
Well, thank you very much. That was Can Move with Business. You're listening to the Beijing Hour. Coming up in sports, Chinese team faces toughest opponent yet at the Australian Open.
The Australian Open Tennis Tournament is the first Grand Slam event of the year. Join us on this week's episode of Sideline Story. We'll chat about some of the top prospects for titles, the futures of some of the greats like Novak Djokovic and Naomi Osaka, as well as some of China's top performers who will be looking to improve on the successive team in 2020.
CEO now turning to sports, and here's Young.
Thank you, Shane. At the Australian Open, the Wang Yafan and the former US Open champion Emma Raducanu's hopes in Melbourne after a grueling three-set battle that lasted nearly 3 hours. Raducanu was playing only her fourth match since returning from 8 months out and 3 surgeries. She revealed after the match she had been feeling sick in the third set decider. Wang has set up an all-Chinese third-round tie against the 12th seed Zhang Qinwen, and she says it allows her to approach that match lightly.
I think it's very good for China's tennis because no matter who wins the match, we will have a Chinese player in the last 16. So I will just take it as a normal competition and try my best.
Meantime, Chinese teenager Shang Junchen stayed humble about the next matchup against the second seed Carlos Alcaraz. 18 years since he will take it as a learning process.
He's had amazing runs and amazing matches in the Grand Slams. I mean, for me, again, low expectation. I expect nothing but a really nice crowd on Rod Laver or maybe Margaret. Depends on which court I play on. Just to enjoy every point, every moment out there, and try to learn. He's a little bit older than me, already one of the best players on tour, so it's going to be great. I'm going to have fun.
Sam is now the only Chinese player remaining in the men's singles draw at Melbourne Park. Elsewhere at the Australian Open, women's world number 1 Iga Swiatek survived a major scare in a 3-set win over former finalist Danielle Collins. Swiatek was on the brink of a shock exit after being broken twice and falling behind 4-1 in the third set. But she managed to capitalize on nervous Collins and reeled off 5 straight games. Women's top 5 seeds Elena Rybakina and Jessica Pegula both crashed out. Daniil Medvedev escaped from a 5-set epic against Emil Ruusuvuori in a match that finished 2 hours before sunrise. The unseeded Finnish player took the first 2 sets, but the Russian third seed showed resilience when it mattered most.
Tough. I think there are only 2 matches I went from 2 sets to love down, and one it was here, so on this court, so this one is gonna for sure stay in my memory. What is it, like 3:40 in the morning? It's late. I honestly, guys, I would not be here. Thanks for staying.
Alexander Zverev and Casper Ruud were both pushed to 50-set tie breaks but managed to go through in respective matches. Novak Djokovic into the fourth round already. The 2024 Gangwon Winter Youth Olympics officially opens on Friday, bringing the winter version of multi-sport competition for top 10 athletes to Asia for the first time. The opening ceremony is centered around the theme of the universe and symbolizes infinite possibilities of the youth. The Games will introduce two new 1500-meter short track events, as well as new mixed-gender relay to replace the previous relay in cross-country skiing. A mixed-team Nordic combined competition will also make its debut. The Winter Youth Olympics is widely seen as a launching pad for winter sport stars, with several stars ready to capture the world's attention in the South Korean city. Atletico Madrid got the better of Real Madrid, beating its crosstown rival 4-2 in extra time to reach the quarterfinals of the Copa del Rey. Antoine Griezmann and Rodrigo scored after a 2-2 draw in regulation to send Atletico to the last stage. The win came less than a week after Atletico lost to Real in the semi-finals of the Spanish Super Cup in Saudi Arabia. Coach Diego Simeone says the victory was for the fans.
As we arrived, we saw our fans excited and looking forward to the game. A match that is merely the round of 16 in the Copa del Rey. And seeing our fans like that made it impossible to not give our all. We were better in extra time, and I think we deserve to win. It is more important getting this victory for our fans than playing in the next round.
Meantime, Barcelona picked up the pace in the second half to beat the third division club Unionistas 3-1 in its round of 16 match. At the Africa Cup of Nations, Egypt lost Mohamed Salah to injury before coming from behind twice to draw 2-2 with Ghana in the potentially decisive group game. Mohamed Kadu scored both goals for Ghana, but the Black Stars were held back down to defensive mistakes as Egypt leveled to Omar Mamouche and Mustafa Mohamed. Ghana head coach Chris Hughey says the team should have gained 3 points.
We're up against one of the favourites in Egypt. So that being the case, I thought our performance was excellent. I thought it was a game they deserved to win. But Egypt are a quality team with quality players, and they were able to capitalise on the mistakes that we made. We need to put in the same performance in our next game to give us a chance of going through.
Ghana remains at the bottom of Group B with just 1 point, while Egypt is second on 2 points behind group leader Cape Verde. Egypt's hopes of going deep at the tournament suffered a further blow when Salah linked up holding the back of his left thigh. And finally, at AFC Asian Cup, Australia became the second team to book a place in the knockout stage by beating Syria 1-0. Jackson Irving delivered the long goal as Aussies maintained a perfect start to their campaign. Uzbekistan joins Australia in the next round after a 3-0 win against India. Palestine boosted its hopes of advancing to the knockout stage of the Asian Cup for the first time after a 1-1 draw against 10-man United Arab Emirates.
All right, thank you very much. That was Young Guang with sports. Coming up in culture and entertainment, in Beijing, a stage version of a classic Hollywood movie.
The Beijing Hour. Hello, I'm Peter Dinklage from X-Men Days of Future Past. You are listening to the Beijing Hour.
Hi, I'm Kathy Freeman, and you're listening to the Beijing Hour.
Hi, everyone. I'm Long Long. Welcome to the Beijing Hour.
The Beijing Hour, your window to China and the world.
53 past the hour, turning to culture and entertainment. A Chinese stage adaptation of the 1994 Hollywood movie The Shawshank Redemption is holding its first round of performances in China. The play features an all-Western cast of Mandarin speakers. Directed by veteran Chinese actor-director Zhang Guoli, it features 11 actors from 8 countries, headlined by Mark Roosevelt from Canada, who's better known among Chinese audiences by his Chinese name, Dash Shan. The play is touring in Shanghai through Sunday before going to Beijing the following weekend. Its tour will extend over 30 shows this year. It's been 30 years since the premiere of the movie, based on a Stephen King novella. An American classical musician has walked the music scene in China. Chicago-born Sean Moore has lived in China for nearly a decade and has shared the stage with many famous Chinese artists. The violinist has also bridged the U.S. and China through music education. Ding Sui has that story.
Having first come to China in 2009 as an exchange student, Sean Moore was thoroughly impressed by the colorful culture and the way of life he encountered artists in the country. This maiden tour planted the seed of his enduring connection with China. In 2014, he made the life-changing decision to settle in Beijing. China, especially its capital, is the place where his musical dream would take off.
Beijing is a very special place. It's a place you come when you have purpose, I think. It's like they're here to do something. And I like that. I like to be around people like that. So that's what's really kept me in Beijing. I am here to make the best music I can and share that with the world.
He believes there are no limits to China's future musical landscape as it boasts so many talented people and has so many space to develop.
I think there's a lot of space for people to reinvent what they're doing, do new things, taking music in interesting directions, and I really enjoy that. I have a vision for the way that music can grow here, and that I can play a small part in that. I think I can contribute. I'm given the space to do that, and I see the possibility for growing as an artist in China. I'm very fortunate people have been giving me opportunities.
Besides sharing his music knowledge on social media, Sean is drawing some innovative musical performances in China. This has given him the opportunity to cooperate with many top Chinese artists, including the world-renowned composer Tan Dun.
We just did a performance in Hunan on the theme of Yu Shu, which was really beautiful. We had a calligrapher, and we had traditional instruments, pipa and violin, and then electronic music, and then beautiful light design. So things like this, I think, really take the music and they can repackage it for audiences in a way that's more interesting for them than just trying it in the old format. You preserve the old in a way, but you use it to inspire new ways of presenting.
As an American artist, Sean has striven to build bridges of cultural exchanges between the two countries.
For Best Picture and Best Director. Organizers will announce the winners on February the 18th at a ceremony in London hosted by We're now checking the forecast before we go for the day, and Bull is down to -5 on Friday evening. Saturday will be cloudy with a high of 0, and then China will see a light rainfall for low degrees tonight. Tomorrow is overcast and 8. Elsewhere in Asia, as well as that's 4 this evening and sunny and 19 on Saturday. Vientiane's 20 overnight. Tomorrow's cloudy and 33. Phnom Penh's at 23 degrees. Cleveland is cloudy and 35 tomorrow. In Africa, Nairobi's getting a light rainfall and 28 degrees on Saturday. Kampala will have a light rain and 21 this evening. That's followed by more rainfall with a high of 26. Juba's at 22 tonight. Tomorrow is sunny and 38 degrees. That's it for this edition of the Beijing Hour. Making news today, China is further expressing willingness to enhance bilateral relations following 5 decades of diplomatic ties. And the UN expresses concerns over the exchange of military strikes between Pakistan and Iran. And staff Shane Brigham in China's capital, hoping to join us for the next edition of the Beijing Hour and open a window to the world together.
Takeaway Chinese, where you can take some Chinese away and experience progress day by day. Takeaway Chinese, thanks you a difference.
Welcome to Round Table. Coming to you live from Beijing. Round Table.
Round Table.
Round Table.
Connecting China and the world.
We bring you fun and timely discussions about what's affecting our lives everywhere, every day. Tune in to Round Table, where the East meets the West, and understanding is the goal.
From north to south, east to west, people in China are tracing their food leaving their mark. Want to know how they beat the odds and make a difference? Footprints brings you true life stories of their journeys.
Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi expressed the country's readiness to enhance partnership with Brazil amid his Brazilian counterpart in Brasilia, adding that the two sides should take the 50th anniversary of diplomatic ties as an opportunity to plan for high-level exchanges in the next phase. He also said, as the biggest developing countries in the East and Western hemispheres, China and Brazil should strengthen unity and cooperation to jointly tackle global challenges. Mauro Vieira said Brazil is ready to strengthen communication and coordination with China and implement a major consensus between the two heads of state. He also said he hopes the G20 summit in Rio will be an opportunity to enhance high-level exchanges and bilateral cooperation. Chinese authorities said the country's remained the world's top manufacturing hub for 14 consecutive years. According to the Ministry of Industry and Information Technology, the country's industrial economy improved in 2023. The information and communication industry grew faster. Last year, the total value added of industrial enterprises above the designated size increased by 4.6%. Among them, the added value of manufacturing enterprises above the designated size increased by 5%. Industrial enterprises above the designated size are those with an annual revenue from principal business of at least 20 million yuan, or about $2.8 million. The Shenzhou 17 crews received a new batch of supplies from the Tianzhou 7 cargo ship docked at the China space station. The 3 Chinese astronauts first checked the integrity of the cargo ship before opening the payload according to safety rules. The items include 90 kilograms of fresh fruit and vegetables and a special gift for the Chinese New Year. The United States has launched a new round of strikes against anti-ship missiles aimed at the Red Sea. A Houthi spokesperson says the United forces carried out a missile strike against a U.S. cargo ship in the Gulf of Aden. The spokesperson says the attack came in retaliation of strikes by the United States. Meanwhile, in the Gaza Strip, Israeli forces advanced into the southern city of Khan Yunis. Heavy fighting was reported at Nasser Hospital, the biggest one still functioning in the enclave. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has told his U.S. allies that he objects to any Palestinian statehood. Sarah Coates has details.
U.S. State Department, after those comments there by the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, came out to say that its commitment to a two-state solution after the war in Gaza remains the same. The spokesperson says that there is no way to solve Israel's long-term security challenges in the region without the establishment of a Palestinian state. But look, despite this rebuff, the State Department has confirmed that its support for Israel remains ironclad. It is very important to say that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, he is a man under fire, not only internationally, but domestically as well. We are hearing from Israeli media that behind the scenes, the ruling Likud party, the members of his party are rallying to try and find a new successor, while Israeli public remains furious. We do need to remember that there are still more than 100 Israeli hostages that do remain in the Gaza Strip. Protests are continuing right across the country.
North Korea has tested an underwater nuclear weapons system in its eastern waters. The Korean Central News Agency says the test was in response to joint naval exercises by the United States, South Korea, and Japan. The test took place in waters south of Jeju Island earlier this week. Alaska Airlines will extend the grounding of its Boeing 737 MAX 9 fleet through Sunday amid an ongoing safety probe. The Federal Aviation Administration ordered the grounding of 171 MAX 9 planes across the U.S. after a mid-air accident 2 weeks ago. It says 40 of the aircraft still need re-inspections before putting them back in service. The World Tourism Organization says international travel is well on track to return to pre-pandemic levels this year. Also, a stronger recovery of Asian markets is expected to underpin a full recovery in the sector. According to the UN body, international tourism rebounded to 88% of pre-pandemic levels, with an estimated 1.3 billion arrivals globally. Public transport fares in London will largely remain the same this year as part of the effort to ease cost of living pressures. Mayor Sadiq Khan acknowledges that continuing inflation Londoners hard. He says the government has set aside £123 million, or $156 million, to freeze transport fees until March of 2025. And that's the news. I'm Shane Baker.
Keep the world turning. This is Roundtable.
Hello, welcome to Roundtable, where we serve up piping hot debates on the issues that sizzle in China and beyond. I'm Hu. Coming up, in the dynamic landscape of China, each region is like a musician in an orchestra, playing a unique tune to attract visitors. Recently, with the tourism industry gaining momentum, tourism bureaus in different regions started to get engaged in a fervent competition, showing their hospitality and warm welcome to visitors all around. Let's take a look at some of their best news and try to answer the question, is it enough and what's next? Also, have you ever felt that you were extra nice and polite, even cute, when communicating with others digitally? Well, I'm sorry to tell you, you might have been just diagnosed with sexual people-pleasing syndrome. Stay with Roundtable to find out what are the symptoms and whether you need to treat them. For today's show, I'm joined by Li Yi in the studio and Josh Cotterill on the line. Now grab your virtual compass and follow us to the heart of the discussion. Recently, cities across China are engaging in a virtual war of attractions. Enthused by Harbin's five-city charm, cultural and tourism departments all around are unleashing a barrage of social media savvy. From promotional videos to celebrity endorsements, tourism bureaus are bringing out their best games. So, can you give us a review of the virtual battle? Who started it first and what happened next?
Yeah, sure. I think the trend was obviously first sparked by a sensational winter tourist destination, Harbin, in northeastern China, and I think the show has already discussed about this phenomenon. And Harbin is known as China's ice city, so ice and snow relevant experience is really typical attraction, and it has been really popular during the past few decades. But this year, it has become particularly, they saw a surge in local tourism because the city first went viral on social media with a lot of, particularly people from southern part of China, went to Harbin for a typical winter experience. And meantime, the city has already stepped up its efforts to attract more people. For example, like expanding the scale of its ice and snow theme park, launching various activities like live performances, firework displays, intangible cultural shows and concerts. And also the city's local residents have also been engaged in terms of showing their hospitality and welcoming visitors from all around the country and even all around the world. And they're volunteering to offer free rides at train stations and on streets to tourists. And also they're offering, say, authentic and real local tips for visitors. So Harbin's popularity among tourists has really skyrocketed. So as such, many regions have been, say, inspired by Harbin's success. And local tourism department officials from numerous provinces and cities are really, say, going out of their way to attract visitors, especially they're really competing for online attention. For example, I think the short video account of the cultural and tourism department of Hebei province used to go by the name of Hebei Luyo, which means Hebei tourism. But net users, mostly from Hebei, of course, they are complaining that this name is too bad. I mean, too bland and too distant, not really, say, a very easily attraction for net users on social media. So they just suggest the official account to rename themselves as Hebei Renli, literally meaning Hebei tourism culture. And it really doesn't really make a lot of sense if you see first hearing on the story and what's the difference between Renli and Luyo. But I think the thing is that most official accounts of local tourism authorities are, say, going by the name as Renli. So basically it's like a small signal that the local tourism authorities in Hebei are also joining this competition to compete for online attention. And also it very closely follows advices coming from its local residents. And the local tourism administrations across China have really demonstrated an unusual determination and also responsiveness to service customers and promote themselves, especially considering the upcoming Chinese New Year holiday. So they're really working really hard to convince visitors that they are the best place to go to. Yeah, so that is basically the entire story. And I have to say, I agree with most things you say, but I think motivated is really just too light, too modest a word to talk about the situation. Basically, some of them are, I'm using the air quotes right now, for those of you who cannot see us, but they're forced, quote unquote, forced to join the competition, and they're trying really, really hard. Because if you take a look at the Hebei Cultural and Tourism account, which is the Chinese TikTok account, they actually released a total of 75 short videos on one day. And that is 3 times the total number of posts in the first 11 days of 2024. So on the 12th day of the year, they decided to release all these short videos because netizens are just saying, come on, you need to up-level your game, do a better job. We have so many resources and we have a lot of beautiful attractions. You need to do something for tourists out there around the world, around China, to know this. So yes, that's why I'm using forced, and that's why I think motivated is, well, yeah, they are definitely motivated. And I was wondering, Josh, have you checked any of these videos? Any particular ones that you found interesting or like to mention?
Yeah, well, actually, many of these videos are being shown, and I didn't even need to. I watched the videos because you kindly sent me some, but I've actually already seen a lot of similar ones already. Even on Instagram, they're everywhere. Our bin is world famous now because of this. And I've just seen videos of everything from, especially the ice sculptures and things like this. It's just so cinematic. It's just so visually striking, I think. And also, I think that tagline that I often see, that I've seen on Instagram, for example, when I've looked this up, and I've just come across by accident as well, it's like China's Ice City, or like China's Secret Ice City, and things like this. And I think that for a lot of people who have never been to China, they don't realize, how diverse China's geography is, and that there is a place where there could be something like an ice city. I think most people in the West, when they think of China, they probably do think of Beijing or Shanghai or something like this, big metropolis cities and things like that. And so when you see something like this, it looks more like something you'd find in, in Siberia, in Russia, or something like that, which, as we know, borders, geographically, is very similar, almost identical to parts of China. But, yeah, so there's something quite magical and mysterious about it. Marketable.
Yeah, totally. On top of Harbin, which we've already discussed on the particular show, talking about how popular it is, and actually a lot of other provinces, other regions and cities are releasing a lot of their promotional videos. Yeah, actually, I particularly love the efforts coming from Henan province, which is quite culture-heavy province in central China, and actually starting from January 9th, the official Douyin account of the Department of Culture and Tourism of Henan province has hugely increased its daily update. So as what Hebei province did, so from 20 clips to a total of 112 videos in 4 days to simply try to showcase its cultural and tourism resources. And so did Shanxi and Shandong provinces. And one typical example of Henan province is that they are trying to showcase their very authentic cultural things to visitors. For example, Shaolin Kung Fu. I'm not really sure if Josh has heard about it, and it's actually one of the most famous types of wushu, which is also martial arts in China. And the Shaolin Temple, which is located in Henan, is actually the freedom of Chinese martial arts. So that's why when you're looking at the official short video platforms of those local tourism in Henan, they're working really hard to showcase the smooth and really handsome cool movements of the Shaolin Kung Fu. And also they're also showcasing their local cuisine. For example, like mutton steamed noodles is a very typical and delicious local cuisine of Henan province. And I think these are definitely working to attract tourists. And also another thing is that I think for this round, typically you see a number of local tourism chiefs and leaders from the official government departments, and they're also getting engaged in some live streaming and also short video creating to attract and to promote their hometown. And also a lot of provinces and cities, they're inviting celebrities, singers, actors, actresses, to help promote local destinations. And I think these tactics have been really successful in terms of attracting younger generations of consumers. Yeah, that's actually quite interesting because even though we talk about the local tourism control bureaus, actually there are different levels of them. If the provincial ones find it relatively easier to invite celebrities, for the city level ones and sometimes even county level ones, they cannot do, or they didn't manage to, at the very first move, invite a lot of celebrities. So what they did is to post on social media platforms saying, we need you, please come and help us promote. This is your hometown, you want it to be great, and we believe you can do the job. And some celebrities would be so kind and almost voluntarily post the videos and to promote their hometown. And I think this whole campaign, this whole internet, in a way, carnival, has engaged a lot of people. This is a very interesting round of promotional activity, and we'll discuss the part of the local bureau heads a bit later. But I was wondering, Josh, this is definitely a festival for citizens here in China, but I was wondering, how are tourist departments in Europe? Have they done anything online to promote their activities or destinations to attract tourists?
Yeah, well, to be honest, it seems as though in China there's a lot more fun stuff going on, but of course, tourism departments in countries internationally have had many campaigns. It's massive industry. In my own country, we have something called Visit Britain, which is the national tourism agency, one of the biggest ones we have. They've employed a multitude of visually appealing content, storytelling and targeted campaigns. For example, there's a lot of hashtags, like hashtag Great Britain on Twitter and Instagram, where they showcase iconic landmarks and things like this. The UK has also had a lot of collaborations with influencers, like travel bloggers and photographers, things like this. But yeah, finding more interesting examples, you'd have to probably go to some other parts of Europe, and I did find some slightly more interesting examples. I can share a couple with you. So in the Czech Republic, actually, in 2018, there was an interesting campaign called the Honest Guide campaign, and this was to attract more tourists. This campaign featured a lot of videos proposed online, and they addressed common tourist scams, and they wanted to provide tips to tourists, how to avoid getting scammed, how to avoid getting mugged on the street and things like this. But actually, the campaign was a little bit hit and miss because it kind of posted a bit of the negative aspects of the destination. So although it's supposed to be helpful, right, you've got to be quite careful. And I think it's quite an interesting example because it's quite delicate, right? You need to make sure that the tourists are ready, but also you don't want to scare them away. Another interesting one was in 2016. I'll give you one more example from Sweden, and this was called Sweden's #1 Fan campaign. And what this did was, amazingly, Sweden handed over the country's official Twitter account to a different citizen every week and allowed them to share their personal experiences. Yeah, well, the idea was to showcase the diversity of Swedish life, because actually Sweden, especially in its biggest cities, are incredibly ethnically diverse. And it actually, though, led to quite a lot of problems because, of course, some of the curators shared some pretty unconventional, controversial opinions, which, again, didn't really contribute to tourism. So I think, again, it's an interesting story because what exactly is the most important aspect when it comes to marketing, your destination for tourists? I think that a lot of us, when we prepare to go on holiday, we do think about things like safety. We do think about things like hotel quality and things like that. But when it comes to marketing, personally, I think the most important thing is how good it looks on camera, at least when it comes to social media.
A lot of people in these different tourism bureaus, the first thing they want to do is to attract people's attention, to make sure that we are under the spotlight, we are being discussed, and after being discussed, they would try to offer the best that they can to keep the attention there, keep the traffic there, and apparently the competition soon extended from online to offline, and the winner for the first round of battle would be, in my opinion, Henan province, because they're giving out diamonds. For real, like real diamonds. Seriously, if I would choose my next destination to go, I would definitely pick Henan. So what is happening? How can I get the diamond? I think it's a pretty generous and bold move coming from this official tourism authorities, and I think that definitely has put huge burden and pressure for other places. Sure. Yeah, I think in Luoyang they are really working really hard, and as you said, this city is an ancient city in Henan, and it has distributed genuine man-made diamonds to tourists. And as long as, say, there are some engaging activities, as long as you can answer a few questions about Luoyang correctly, and you can just get your diamond and take them home. And the thing is that, well, that's a definitely very eye-catching move to attract tourists to coming to Luoyang or Henan province. But the thing is that I think it has also successfully let people know about its industry, because as a random visitor, you were just a bit curious, why diamond and why Luoyang, why Henan, right? The true thing is that actually Henan is the major production place of man-made diamond, and actually by July of 2023, about 95% of the global production of lab-grown diamonds, also known as synthetic diamonds, come from China, and with 80% of them being produced in Henan. So that's why they are using as a major tactic to attract visitors. And as you said, yes, the competition has been expanding from online to offline, because another eye-catching activity promoted by Luoyang is that they are greeting travelers at Luoyang railway station with lines of majestic warriors to, wearing armor and helmets and also holding spears. And the thing is that it's quite a unique experience for any random visitor. And another thing is that they're like tall and handsome. So they're getting huge attention on social media, and that definitely is taking effect to attract visitors. Yeah, we can see that not only Luoyang is giving out diamonds, actually Yuntai Mountain Scenic Spot is giving out pearls to tourists on January 15th, and a lot of different places are offering a lot of free tickets for a certain period of time if visitors travel there, including Anhui, Gansu, Xizang, Shanxi. All these places are offering free tickets of their most famous scenic spots, and all these have been expanded to this real competition to attract tourists. And I was wondering, one very important and very interesting thing for me is that when it comes to government departments or government officials, you would have the idea or perception or stereotype in this case that they are relatively serious. They can do a lot of serious work, and they do not really engage with netizens that much or that directly or that quickly. Yet, for this round, we see netizens' role being very important and very vital in the almost extravagant promotional campaign. We see some netizens online saying things like, I'm from Shanxi province. Our bureau head would be able to drink 100% vinegar directly from the bottle. He's that good. And people from Henan province will say things like, I'm from Henan province, and our bureau head, because we are a province being famous for having fierce competition when it comes to the college entrance examination, so our bureau head is so good that he can finish his 10 paper tests in 10 minutes. And someone from, for example, Inner Mongolia would say things, our bureau head is able to do acrobats on the back of a horse. Of course, they are bragging, and they don't really mean that, but some people would jokingly say these citizens are kind of like kindergarten kids. Their fathers are superheroes and can fly. It's a very playful and fun and happy occasion, engaged with both the supposed to be serious but proven to be not so serious type government officials and netizens all around. So why are people being so quote-unquote advisable in your advice? How come they are willing to get engaged with this fierce competition, both online and offline?
Well, I think that competition makes for pretty good marketing in itself, right? I think that when you have
all of these different areas competing against one another. Sometimes it can be quite positive if you can create a buzz, a rivalry between two places in particular, you know, it can really promote it to some degree. I know that, for example, in the United Kingdom, there's quite a rivalry between, for example, the North and the South. And some of these rivalries can be pretty serious, you know, they can date back historically to things like economics and the distribution of wealth and more serious things like this. But when it comes to tourism and advertising, you know, I think that sometimes it can be healthy. I think that to have these distinctions between one another can actually benefit both parties, because if you have enough time, you would want to visit London, but then you'd also want to go and visit Edinburgh, right? Which is a completely different aesthetic and a different vibe entirely, right? But I think London makes Edinburgh look amazing, and I think Edinburgh makes London look amazing. So I think that there's some positives to be taken away from it. I think, though, also ultimately, when we're in the realm of social media, it is, what is social media? It is comparison. That's what it is. What every single aspect of it. How many likes can you get? How many friends do you have? How many followers do you have? How many people are you following, etc.? How many views and clicks do you get on all of your content? That is the essence of social media. So, I mean, it's ultimately always going to have this fierce competition.
Yes, and I think we've mentioned enough examples about how hard these local tourism bureaus, how hard they try to attract visitors, and they've definitely given out some very creative and very fun moves. But do you think these types of promotions can lead to a meaningful increase in tourism, or will they just be a temporary boost? Will be a short-time carnival that everyone celebrates and enjoys, and that's it? Well, I think definitely for this period of time, I think it has successfully attracted the concrete tourists and also tourism overlays, for example, Hidden Province, and it has really working really hard to invite celebrities to help promote its local destinations, and the results are pretty positive because orders for destinations in this northeastern province rose by 92%, and especially for these Shanghai mountains, which is a favorite destination for skiing and sightseeing, we see the share price of investments on the domestic stock market gained more than 143% after 13 days of trading ending on January 15. So pretty positive results coming from the market. In the meantime, we are talking about a sustainable approach. I think for consumers, for visitors, of course, we can all get engaged in this online carnival by actively commenting and leaving messages, either to promote your own hometown or to have some fresh experience of understanding other culture from other parts of the country. But I think for the longer term, those local tourism authorities really need to work hard to promote their services, because in the end, I think tourism industry is a service industry. You have to make sure you are providing not only really good natural sceneries, but also you have to make sure the features, the edges you're offering online are really irreplaceable for consumers, so that they really want to go back to this place, or you have different batches of consumers coming to this place every year. You have to make sure you have a really well-equipped industry, because not only say sightseeing, but also accommodation, catering, transportation, and you have to know your target consumers. Who are you really attracting? Many departments are already doing that. Actually, many of them are collecting advices from netizens online and saying, if you can give a actual advice, I will seriously do something about it to solve the problem, and you will also get a reward. And some netizens said, I left a message, I thought it would be there, left untended, but it turns out my problem is solved, and I will definitely go to the place to visit again. And that kind of service is what we're talking about here. So I guess the surge in creative digital tourism promotion underscores a pivotal shift in how destinations engage visitors, blending cultural pride with digital savvy to charge new paths in travel. Perhaps the real diamonds in Luoyang aren't the stones handed out at the station, but the city's undimmed charm and historical treasures waiting to be discovered. It's Roundtable with myself, Neil Holly, Lee E, and Josh Cotterill. We'll be back after the break. Don't go away. or you miss Roundtable's happy place. How are you? What's on your mind? Let's have a heart-to-heart on Roundtable. Ask us anything. We'll help you answer it. Send a voice memo to EZFM Roundtable at foxmail.com. We'll play a question on Roundtable and talk through it on the next show. Take care. We can't wait for heart-to-heart with you.
Delve into a world of words with Books and Beyond, a podcast made especially for audiobook lovers. I came into the world as the youngest of five. What Her Majesty would be like. Fie upon you, limpid one. Why have you taken? Immerse yourself in gripping stories and timeless classics from the comfort of your own personal space. Sun Tzu underlined 3 points on the context to
There
gain
was no better wine, and not to mention
whether you're a bookworm or a casual listener, our carefully curated selection of audiobooks will transport you to new worlds and stir your imagination. Subscribe to Books and Beyond and start your audiobook adventure now on radio.cgtn.com or your favorite podcast.
Beijing. Roundtable.
Connecting China and the world.
We bring you fun and timely discussions about what's affecting our lives everywhere, every day. Tune in to Roundtable, where the East meets the West, and understanding is the goal. Keep the world turning.
This is Roundtable.
You're listening to Roundtable. I'm your Helene, joined by Joshua and Li Yi. Coming up on the second half of the show, we discuss the so-called textual people-pleasing syndrome. Are you super polite when talking to people online? You might just have that. And there's also Roundtable's happy place. Now, have you ever noticed how people sometimes transform into the epitome of politeness when they are interacting online? From comments to abundance of overly cute emojis. The internet seems to have its own etiquette code. But what's behind this digital decorum? Is it genuine kindness, or is there more than meets the eye? I have to ask first, to Josh, maybe, do you have this subform of people-pleasing syndrome yourself? Can you share some of your symptoms?
I think that I really suffer from this, and it's actually quite stressful for me, to be honest. I think that one thing is that it's just a linguistic issue, being that my native tongue is English, and also British English. I think that a lot of these things are even more nuanced than just the language. I think that even when I speak, well, you say that, but in fact, actually, I find that British English, when we write, is very direct, and we often are quite concise in the way that we write. And I think that you can also see this in literature as well. I mean, if you look at a lot of famous British writers and you look at the language that's used, especially from the 20th century, it is quite concise and direct. I don't know if that's where it stems from, but either way, when I'm in China, even if I'm speaking in English or if I'm typing in Chinese or translating or whatever, I do find that I have to be quite careful in my tone, and I'm constantly worrying about it. I know that this is in part because it's not my native language, but also I think that in China, writing through messages and also emojis and stickers, this is a whole language in itself, which I think many people have a fluency in, have varying degrees of fluency in. And I find that sometimes that the way that these stickers and emojis are used, sort of transcends language. It's almost like sometimes they're used in a way that's just so perfect. And I look at it and I'm like, wow, I wish I had the confidence to put that sticker in that group when my boss, for example, is in the group or something like this. I'm like, that's such a power move, you know? I think sometimes I apologize too much, or I use too much jargon, and I really worry about this. I really do.
It's actually quite interesting to know your feeling about using a second language, because I think when I'm speaking or texting in English, I'll just try to be polite. But when I'm using my first tongue, I am actually trying to be lovely and cute. And You are lovely, actually. Oh, thank you. Childish in a way. It's kind of like showing that you're not only polite and nice, but also innocent and definitely harmless. It's another kind of mentality, I guess. But I want to ask Eve first. Do you have that problem? Do you use the wavy mark quite so much, the wavy lines? Do you sometimes repeat the character twice just to be cute instead of saying sure? You say sure, sure. That's the English equivalent, by the way. Not really, to be honest, because for most cases, I don't really consider myself as a person who speaks in a really lovely way, either in the real world or on online platforms. So that's why I use a lot of emojis and stickers. Your emojis are cute and lovely, a lot of catties and because baby faces sometimes. And also monkeys. Yeah. Because they can really help to convey your messages and need time to soften your tone. Yeah, that's right. And I think that's the thing of social media. I mean, that's the thing of virtual messaging tools, because you can't really see the facial expressions and also the way. I mean, the smile on your face while you're typing this word, and especially I think it also depends on who are you speaking to, right? For example, if you are speaking to really close friends so that you're getting too familiar with each other and you don't really overthink about his or her reaction about your wording, then I think you can just freely type the word you want to say without any, say, decoration. Either emoji or stickers, but more commonly in workplace, people are being super careful about the way they speak, either to colleagues, to superiors, to their boss, or to the team members, because they want to show their friendliness, to show they're polite, to show they are sincerely respecting, and they want to show they're being really too kind to each other. So that's why we have this, say, overthought when we're typing on online platforms. That is a really good point. And actually, I do feel that when I'm talking to different people, I am almost subconsciously creating this different persona. So if I'm talking to, for example, a client or interviewee for the very first time, I'm not going to use that cat emoji to say, no, this is perfect. I'm not doing that. I will definitely just say, sure, I'll do that. I'm very glad to know you. I'm not going to say normal emoji, but the relatively light-hearted kind of emoji instead of the very extravagant, very strongly, emotionally strong kind of emojis. But when I'm talking to, like you said, colleagues or superiors, sometimes instead of me saying okay, you will see a little rabbit putting up this okay sign, and it is considered that you're showing you're in a nice, lovely, and cute mood. But this is interesting because sometimes, for example, if you are filing a complaint informally, if you are accepting a job that you don't genuinely think is a good idea, but you're accepting it anyway, these kind of tones, these kind of emojis would definitely compromise the actual meaning or the actual emotion you're trying to send. Do you see that as a real problem? Well, I think it really depends on the scenarios you're using this tactic, because what you mentioned, actually, I think they are the fair use of linguistic tool to either create your persona or to achieve the goal you want to achieve. Say you want to be professional and present your professional in front of your clients, in front of the partners you're working with. But then I think, yes, if we over-edit or alter the words or the phrases we're sending on online platforms, it really does somehow change the true meaning, and even to make people understand the message you're trying to convey.
Well, I think for sure actions speak louder than words, but this is all communication, this is all linguistic and all very specific to those different cultural nuances. I really do think so. I think that over-communication in some cultures may be just the perfect amount in others. You know, it's one thing to use the language correctly, grammatically, with punctuation, with the right spelling, appropriate choice of words and things like this, but then when you talk about the length of the message, right? When to use these words. That's another level of fluency that goes beyond just saying the words correctly, right? And I think that there's levels to fluency even in one's own language. I think even in my own country, there are people, most people there will speak fluent English, but there may be people who are more fluent in, for example, business English, or more fluent in English in this realm and this realm. And I don't know the answer to this question. I think, yes, sometimes being over-polite can be negative, and I think that sometimes it can show weakness. I think that often when we are over-polite, what it means is that we're showing respect to somebody that we consider to be more superior to us. Because, you know, just think about it. Would you expect that kind of politeness from that person, right? I mean, usually when the relationship is mutual, whether it's at work or whether it's with friendships, you notice that you're both usually using the same sort of language, right? And the amount of effort you're both putting in, like in your relationship, is equal. So I guess that it ultimately comes down to the relationship. And it really depends on which language we're talking about here, you know? British English, American English, Chinese. I don't know, in different parts of China, I know that China has so many different dialects and things like this, and it's so massive, like, do people type also in different ways, depending on where you are in China?
Well, definitely, I would think so. Many people would even type in their local dialect, the sound of it, because some dialect has certain words that does not really exist in writing, and they would just use the sound to mimic that word. People would be able to understand. But I think on top of that, a lot of people are still trying to be extra polite or extra harmless when talking to each other. And that level of trying, or that level of mastering or using, like Josh has just said, almost another kind of language online would also affect the evolution of that language itself. What I'm trying to say here is that, for example, previously, if you think 10 years ago, if you send a really funny post to your friend, and if your friend reply LOL in English or ha 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 in Chinese, you would find it okay. But for young kids nowadays, they would deem ha ha ha, the three LOL, being you're just being polite. The sixth ha 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 being like it and you respect me. But if you're giving them 2 lines of ha's, they would say, oh, you really think this is funny. I am very satisfied that you really like it. This is almost, in my opinion, LOL inflation. And this is making genuine sending out your real emotions extra hard, because the using of the emojis, the using of these exclamation marks, of these so many words together is being watered down in a way. And also the thing is that you see when people have this kind of expectations, say 6 ha 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 or 6 LOLs, that they really want to pretty positive feedback coming from the other side. That's why I think over-politeness could really be a hinder in terms of the scenarios that you want to create closer relations with the other person, because I think in real relationship, you really want this dynamic of both positive, neutral, and negative feelings or emotions to really go in between the two people. And then if you only expect other people can only provide positive feedback, that means you're denying his or her right to convey his or her true feelings or true emotions, his or her true feedback. I mean, meantime, that also sent this message that my feeling is more important than yours, because at this point, I really want positive feedback. And even though you are not really thinking this post or this sticker funny, you have to really be proactive and be responsive to somehow work with me to complete this little mini conversation. Almost like to show that our friendship means that much. Yes. Or that many house. Yes. Another interesting phenomenon I realized, especially in at least the Chinese-speaking world, is that different generations would have different understandings towards expression, really common and simple expressions, as well as emojis, differently. For example, for my parents, if you give them the very normal and just polite smile, they would consider that you're being polite instead of sarcastic. But definitely, if you do that to people in our generation, they would have to, what's wrong? What's wrong with my response? Something like that. So there is this generational difference in communicating online. What are some other examples that you've noticed? I think when For example, is that my parents and also elder generations, they love to use voice messaging in WeChat instead of texting. So every day I would just receive, let's say, dozens of pieces of voice messages with each of them being 1 minute long from my mother. And each time, or most cases, I would just, transform them into words, especially when I'm too busy, because I'm not really that fond of voice messages at all. But I think elder generations, they obviously prefer this, say, face-to-face expression or conversation, so that you can really hear the other person, you can really speak your voice loud, and they are not really getting used to using stickers, of course, and emojis, as you mentioned. But I think that's just a linguistic phenomenon, because I think each generation has their own habits of using these linguistic tools in terms of conveying the messages.
What's the situation in the English-speaking world?
I think the situation is similar, for sure. I mean, there's probably a lot of differences, obviously, in language and things like this, but I think that we're talking about language ultimately, and language, even when it's spoken, I think there's vast differences between generations, but especially when we come to something like technology, which is, as we all know, the technological revolution has boomed so fast, right? And so we see massive, massive differences between generations in the way they interact with social media online, and we know that even a lot of older generations, they struggle a lot to use social media or even instant messaging or even type on smartphones generally, right? So there's massive differences. In the UK, I think that it's quite difficult to pinpoint some of these differences because, for example, a lot of older generations just don't often text or use instant messaging. They'll still often rely on their phones. We still have landlines. I'm not sure if that's really a thing in China, you know, where you have a house phone and you have a telephone number that people can call. When I call my grandmother, I'll call her house phone, so she'll have a telephone linked up to the telegraph pole. I think these days, in most big cities in China, this is mainly just used for the Wi-Fi connection, right? And things like this. So my point being is that if she ever were to type or anything like that, it would be extremely formal, extremely direct, because that's really the only way she knows how to write. And I think it's the same for all the generations. The generation before me, I guess, Gen X is that? I always get a bit confused about this, but those guys, I think it's somewhere in the middle. Something that I have noticed is that with my parents and my parents' friends, they've sort of in the last 5 to 10 years to develop their own style of messaging, which is usually just filled with, especially my mother and her friends, just filled with X's at the end of most messages, which in English is like a kiss, right? Not a romantic thing, it's just like sending love, and it'll be the most mundane, no offense to them, but like, you know, the most mundane thing, followed by kisses and things like this, and that seems to be quite common as well, which is something I don't do. But then I find myself doing the same, you know, when I send messages back to them to meet their standards. So, you know, I have suffered from this syndrome, so I will often, I'm like a chameleon, I will change the way I type in order to adapt to the specific situation and the person I'm speaking to.
Yes, it appears that more people, much more people are experiencing the textual people-pleasing symptoms compared to real people-pleasing personalities in real life. And why is that? How come this phenomenon is happening to a lot of people quite commonly, do you think? Well, I think it just depends on different people's personalities, of course. If you are a naturally people-pleasing personality, of course, you would just continue this behavior on online texting. And according to a survey investigating the reasons behind this syndrome, actually nearly 27% of respondents think they are simply expressing respect for specific chat partners, and nearly 18% indicating that long-term workplace stress has already shaping their communication habits. So that's why they're behaving like this, especially in workplace. And there are also other reasons, like it's just the traits of people-pleasing personality, as I mentioned. And also some people are saying that because they are surrounded by people who are having this textural people-pleasing syndrome, so that's why they're being affected. Yes. But earlier, I think different people have different understanding of one same word, one same sentence, right? And especially we have different types of personalities. We talk about E people and I people, extroverted and introverted people. But all in all, I think we really want to show our politeness and friendliness, especially in workplace or with strangers, or in most cases, I would say, you really want to keep your persona as a positive persona. You don't really want to cry all the way and to being pretty negative. So that's why most people somehow have this kind of people-pleasing trait to show politeness simply.
So last question. Do you think we should do something about it? If someone, after hearing and listening to all we have discussed for this topic and decided, I am suffering from it, do they have to change?
I think that's a difficult question to answer because it really depends on your industry and what you're doing. I think that internally, I would say at work, I think that work culture certainly needs to change. I think that it needs to be more standardized, and the way people communicate at work, the amount of messages that are allowed to be sent to you, the time at which emails and messages are allowed to be sent to you, or your boss is allowed to contact you, I think that should be more standardized and should be stricter, because I think a lot of the time, communication, I find, especially working in this country, the message is lost often amongst a lot of other unnecessary contacts. I think that Chinese work culture can probably do somewhat to develop. And so, yes, I think some things do need to change, but then it depends on your industry. If you work, for example, in sales, if you're negotiating, if negotiating is part of your job, and let's face it, I think a lot of us at some point or other have a degree of negotiation that we have to use our people skills, whether we're talking about work scheduling or not just, sometimes money, all of these things. We have to form relationships. We have to, in journalism, for example, you have to make connections with people in order to get information right. There's a lot of exceptions to this that mean that sometimes you just have to get it done. And so it really depends, but I think in the workplace, generally, when it comes to things like management and setting tasks and things like this, I think that we need to have a big think about how better to use language and make it more concise anyway. But this is me as a British person speaking from my point of view. I'm just talking about what would make me more comfortable, so I'm sure that people listening would disagree with me and think that I'm being too idealistic. Yeah.
No, I think I totally agree with you. It depends, but I feel like it depends on how serious it affects you negatively. If you find yourself looking at a sentence you've just typed and correcting it again and again and adding too many wavy lines after it and putting in too many emojis and deleting them and choosing other ones, if you're spending too much time on it, or if you feel that after sending out that sentence you think too much about how would people react to it, then it might be time for you to take a pause and take a look at how it's affecting you mentally, and maybe to make changes and try to be someone who loves yourself a little more than you love others. But if it's just something that you can do easy peasy, then you can continue doing it. To light up the room with your words, to smile to others with your emojis, and to make the world a better place. And that is great, perky and harmless, just like the emojis. You're listening to Roundtable. Coming up, Roundtable's Happy Place.
Delivery.
What is it? Happiness from Roundtable. It's the hour of Roundtable with myself, Neil Holly, and Josh Cotterill, and Li Yi. And it's time for Roundtable's Happy Place. So, Li Yi, what is your happy place? Well, I just want to recommend a travel reality show called Divas Hit the Road, which is also 花儿与少年 in Chinese. And the fifth season of this show is particularly exciting, I would say. Well, definitely, it usually features popular female and male celebrities traveling to various destinations, and for this season they have traveled to Saudi Arabia, Malaysia, and Iceland. And I want to recommend this season because I think it's so funny and uplifting, particularly considering most previous seasons are pretty trying to manufacture drama and conflicts to make sure it's attractive. But this season, I think all the cast members really having good vibes and are entertaining. So that's a very important function of entertainment show, in my opinion. And the second one is that this season they are centered around the study tour theme. So they just have their travel and education immerse themselves in local cultures along the Belt and Road Initiative, actually. For example, they visited a bridge built by the China Road and Bridge Corporation, and that's part of the collaboration between China and Croatia, and you see how this bridge actually connects the northern and southern parts of Croatia, and also has become a symbol of friendship of people from these two countries, and that's quite heart-touching, I would say. And the third one is that we talk about tourism, right? And do you think that travel is somehow very complicated scenario that in most cases you are excited and also exhausted, so that's why usually a lot of conflicts and quarrels would happen during trips. But this season, I think they have demonstrated how different personalities gather together and how to solve these conflicts and how to really solve this problem and try to achieve mutual understanding through communication. And I think that really offers a very good lesson for someone like me who is like super introvert and yet really want to have good communication with other people. So that's why I recommend everyone to watch this season of Divas Hit the Road.
Sounds like a very interesting reality show, and I've seen clips of it, and some of them have demonstrated relatively relaxed personality, and they didn't try that hard to perform great in front of camera, which makes the reality show a little more to reality than a performance, which is also why I agree with Li here that it could be a good show to bring happiness to your life. So how about you, Josh?
Yeah, that show sounds really cool as well. It makes me, when I watch these shows though, it makes me want to travel a lot sometimes. I get a bit jealous when I watch them, I must admit. But it sounds great. I'm going to check it out. Well, for me, my happy place, recently I've rediscovered a band that you may have heard of called The Beatles. It's supposed to be a joke because, of course, they're so famous, but they're one of the greatest, I think, and most influential bands in the world. And recently I was given an opportunity to discuss The Beatles with some people at an event, and I'd always... called Revolver, which is one of their more experimental albums. And, you know, all the way through the 60s, basically, they were just pretty relentless in producing music. And just the innovation and creativity and the effect that four young guys from Liverpool had on the whole world, on pop music in general, is just huge. I think that pop music everywhere, in every country, has been influenced by the Beatles in some way. And I've just really, really enjoyed it. So I do encourage anybody just to go and listen to some of their records, especially the album Revolver, I would say. And you just, if you're interested in history, if you're interested in melody or music in general, just go and have a listen to it and read a bit about their backstory. It's just incredible. The story of them really is incredible. And I think that these days, sometimes it's easy to take for granted a little bit what, you know, a small band like that has done because now they're so famous and things like this. I don't think them sadly passed away, but just going back and looking at it, certainly helps me as somebody who sometimes calls themselves a musician, and I really, really loved it. So I'm still in the middle of re-listening to all of that right now.
I would definitely go check it out. And I think that's all the time we have. As we just close the doors of our happy place today, I think we are leaving with a heart a little lighter and a spirit a bit brighter. So I look over with you, and don't forget to pass it on. A smile, a kind word, or a compliment. And that brings us to the end of today's roundtable. Thanks Lee and Josh. Until next time, keep the conversations going and the ideas flowing. I'm Yoli. Bye.
2,500 years ago, World War I buffalo and headed west from China. Before he vanished, into the wild. He left behind a book of 5,000 words, which for the next 2.5 millennia have shaped the Chinese way of thinking. Subscribe to the sayings of Lao Tzu and find out why generals with wisdom after winning the ultimate battle, and how staying behind just might help you get ahead of others. The Sayings of Lao Tzu is available on all major podcast platforms.
Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi expressed the country's readiness to enhance partnership with Brazil, Wang Yi's Brazilian counterpart in Brasilia, adding that the two sides should take the 50th anniversary of diplomatic ties as an opportunity to plan for high-level exchanges in the United States. The biggest developing countries in the East and Western hemispheres, China and Brazil should strengthen unity and cooperation to jointly tackle the challenges. The U.S. said this and bilateral cooperation. Chinese authorities said the country has remained the world's top manufacturing hub for 14 consecutive years. According to the Ministry of Industry and Information Technology, the country's industrial economy improved in 2023, and the information and communication industry grew faster. Last year, the total value added of industrial enterprises above the designated size increased by 4.6%. Among them, the added value of manufacturing enterprises above the designated size increased by 5%. Industrial enterprises above the designated size are those with an annual revenue from principal business of at least 20 million yuan, or about 2.8 million US dollars. The Shenzhou 17 crews received a new batch of supplies after the Tianzhou 7 cargo ship docked at the Chinese space station. The 3 Chinese astronauts first checked the integrity of the cargo ship before opening the payload according to safety rules. The items include 90 kilograms of fresh fruit and vegetables and a special gift from the Chinese New Year. The United States has launched a new round of strikes against Houthi anti-ship missiles aimed at the Red Sea. A Houthi spokesperson says Yemeni forces carried out a missile strike against a U.S. cargo ship in the Gulf of Aden. The spokesperson says the attack came in retaliation to strikes by the United States. Meanwhile, in the Gaza Strip, Israeli forces advanced into the southern city of Khan Yunis. Heavy fighting is occurring near Nasser Hospital, the biggest one still functioning in the enclave. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has told his allies that he objects to any Palestinian statehood. Sarah Coates has details.
The U.S. State Department, after those comments by the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, came out to say that its commitment to a two-state solution after the war in Gaza remains the same. The spokesperson Matt Miller, he says that there is no way to solve Israel's long-term security challenges in the region without the establishment of a Palestinian state. But look, despite this rebuff, the State Department has confirmed that its support for Israel remains ironclad. It is very important to say that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, he is a man under fire, not only internationally, but domestically as well. We are hearing from Israeli media that behind the scenes, the ruling Likud party, the members of his party, are rallying to try and find a new successor. While the Israeli public remains furious, we do need to remember that there are still more than 100 Israeli hostages that do remain in the Gaza Strip. Protests are continuing right across the country.
North Korea has tested an underwater nuclear weapons system in its eastern waters. The Korean Central News Agency says the test was in response to joint naval exercises by the United States, South Korea, and Japan. The test took place in waters south of Jeju Island earlier this week. Alaska Airlines is extending the grounding of its Boeing 737 MAX 9 fleet through Sunday amid an ongoing safety probe. The Federal Aviation Administration ordered the grounding of 171 MAX 9 planes across the U.S. after a mid-air accident 2 weeks ago. It says quality of the aircraft still needs re-inspections before putting them back in service. The World Tourism Organization says international travel is well on track to return to pre-pandemic levels this year. It notes that the stronger recovery of Asian markets is expected to underpin a full recovery in the sector. According to the Went body. International tourism rebounded to 88% of pre-pandemic levels, with an estimated 1.3 billion arrivals globally. Public transport fares in London will largely remain the same this year as part of the effort to ease cost of living pressures. Mayor Sadiq Khan acknowledges that consumer inflation hit Londoners hard and says the government has set aside £123 million or $156 million to freeze transport fees until March of 2025. And that's the news. I'm Chamberlain.
Welcome to The Bridge. Fun conversations on culture, life, and everything in between.
Find us where you get your podcast. If you like the show, then consider pushing the like button or giving us 5 stars. Suggestions, comments, anything you would like to share, email us at welovethebridge@gmail.com. Welcome to The Bridge. We are a show which connects east and west. My name is Jason, and today with me is David.
Hey, hi Jason. Hello everybody. How are you doing?
Well, I'm wonderful. I can't account for everybody.
Well, I hope everybody's doing well. So many people are getting sick.
Sure, yeah.
Like the whole world is coughing.
Yeah, I guess this is just the time of year for that to happen. According to a report published in 2020 by Women's Wear Daily, hashtag Zero Waste garnered more than 4.7 million uses on Instagram that year, making it one of the fastest growing and widely used sustainability-related hashtags on the platform. The movement to live sustainably has rapidly picked up steam and is set to break decade-old trend. Maybe we can finally collectively apply enough pressure on corporations and CEOs to do something for risk using their bottom line.
Well, my first question for you, Jason, is why were you reading Women's Wear Daily?
You know, it was quoted in the BBC from an article in 2023. And so, 2 weeks ago, they were quoting it because zero waste is again, and actually, the BBC has a new column, environment and, war or national, international. They have a whole section on the BBC devoted to living sustainably. So,
well, I like the concept, but I think the hashtag zero waste might scare away a lot of people because it's like, it's fighting for a perfectionist way of doing things, and that's very, very hard to reach. If we just say, like, less waste.
Well, here's the thing about hashtags to put out, is that usually we all have our different opinions about what would be popular with most people, but if it's got 4.7 million uses, then it's proven that it, as a hashtag, is more popular than any individual might perceive. Like, we might be wondering, would that take off? But literally, it has taken off. So in terms of Instagram hashtags, it's one of the most popular hashtags out there. So people really like zero waste. So I think there is a movement, at least among, a lot of developed nations where there's a lot of waste, to start re-examining their own lifestyle.
Right. That's definitely the direction that we need to go going forward. I'm just saying that, getting something positive done is better than getting nothing positive done. Because once you hear people with, like, something absolute, like zero waste, my response would be, oh, I can't do that. I mean, I look at the waste I produce every day, I'm like, zero? Like, how do I reduce that to zero? But I can go for less. Little less today, little less next month, and that will be just more practical in a way. But I like the idea. I love it.
Well, if that works for you, sure. But I think there are actually people. Okay, so you know how maybe in the 1980s, people would say, I'm a vegetarian. And at that point, people were really thinking, oh my gosh, that's too extreme. I could never do that, right? Well, now there are tens of millions of vegetarians in the West.
And vegans.
And vegans. And that's a whole new thing, too. That's only really taken on in the last 15 or 20 years. And now there are, like, millions of vegans as well. So it may seem like a big step to some people now, the idea of zero waste. But I think this is one of those things that we'll be looking down 10, 20 years. There's going to be a lot more people living this way than we might expect. And it doesn't mean you can't be cool. Because these people are not, like, living in a cave, or whatever, with like a deer skin and whatever. They're going out to really cool, trendy places and buying cool, trendy things. So you can go to like thrift stores and buy old coffee mugs and stuff, or you can take old furniture and sand it down and finish it. It's not that they don't want to, like, use happy, good things that make you comfortable in, like, modern life, but they want to do it with the least amount of impact on the environment as it is actually possible to do.
And they want it to last. Have you heard of the Japanese village called Kamikatsu? I think I'm saying this right.
I haven't.
I think this is the village that I heard about. There's this one Japanese village, like, in the mountains. I think it's in the Shinkansen region. People there, maybe just 1,500 people, and it was plagued by terrible environmental conditions, I think maybe decades earlier, I'm guessing, and the villagers got so tired of it. Nobody wanted to live in, what's another word for, like, shitty environment? Nicer way.
Oh my goodness.
First time I said this word. Is there a better word for that?
I've ever heard you say any bad word. I don't know, a bad environment?
Okay. That would do. So, there was a time in it, and they decided they were going to go for something close to zero waste.
Yeah.
And the villagers, they actually acted together. And, you know, later on, they did almost achieve 0%. I think the town village now recycles 80% of its garbage.
Wow.
This, according to the city leaders, and basically everything circular. Like, they're so tough on recycling. If you have a bottle, you have to spend like 5 minutes just taking it apart. Like ripping it apart. I'm exaggerating, but they do that for everything. Like your yogurt bottles, your clothing, everything you want to recycle. By the time you like finish cleaning things up, you realize that everything can be reused.
Yeah.
So it becomes like a mentality instead of just like small actions you do. So you do it, you do things more consciously, right? You buy less wasteful stuff. So there are examples in the world that we can look forward to.
Well, you know, I was thinking about you, Amy, because we've been talking about the environment for a couple of years now, and I have made gradual improvements, but I've not gotten to what, you know, we started with the concept of zero waste. There's no way, not at all. And I use disposable cups. But I would say through our conversations, I've definitely become less wasteful than I was before, and I've taken some steps towards improving the environment. And I think, you know, I do a reasonable, okay job, and it makes me realize that it's not down to only consumers again. I've had this conversation before. We really need companies to step up and follow a lot of the new technologies that do exist, which are more expensive. Here's the thing. If I wanted to buy coffee, and you told me that your coffee that comes in like some kind of container, that your container was biodegradable, but it was going to break down into the environment within like a couple of years, right? And it's going to be fine. I would pay more for your product, and I would pay double. I would pay double. You know, if it was like $3 for this one, and that one's $6, but it was environmental sound, I would pay $6. So I think that's something that companies don't understand, that we are willing to spend more, to pay more to make sure that our choices are not hurting the world.
So, you know, as a busy mom, I actually order takeouts every week, and a lot of times it's for breakfast. And you know, Chinese steamed buns, like they steam. Not just like the ones with meat and everything inside, you know, baozi, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
So these make really good breakfast items. And I ordered them from these shops close to me. And there's this one shop, that's the most expensive one. I buy it from them most of the time. And the reason is not because their baozi are that much better than the rest. It's because their baozi come in paper bags. And their porridge comes in paper cups. Now, I tried several other options. Either they use like plastic containers, like the worst kind, or they're just like they use these small paper, like thick paper boxes, which I think is wasteful. All I need is just a simple paper bag, right? Like 10 minutes on the way, you end up in recycling. So I think the shops may never know that consumers like me rejected their shops. Not because anything wrong with their but because of the way that they are packaged. So if I can just, maybe someday I just go, you know, knock on their doors and tell them, hey, change your container and I'll buy from you.
You could do it in the comment section on the Alamo, right? You can just go in there and say, I love your product, please use a different kind of container, I will order from you. Something like that, right?
Do you think they'll read it?
I think that, if I was the business owner, I would definitely be reading the comments. I know that American business owners read the Yelp comments.
I see.
On topic, but I think it's related to reading comments, right? So there's a very famous American coffee shop that got a very terrible Yelp review. So when you walk
there's a huge sign on the cafe that says, "Come in and try the worst coffee in the world according to one Yelp review." This is brilliant because they're like kind of poking fun at someone.
And actually showing that they're confident, you know, in their own way.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyhow.
Welcome to my stories of Chinese characters, season 2. I'm a Wuhan Fu. This season, we travel to different destinations and experience the different scenery throughout the year. This season, I'll taste delicious food. I'm sure. Feel the delicacy of Chinese food. Some people say this is the world's closest computer. Each one of these is an instruction. And enjoy the local architecture. Yes, it's a big house. You will feel a sense of camaraderie in the slow train. And feel the excitement of the snowfield. This season, we will take you to see a different China from the perspective of Chinese characters. Meet us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and other major podcast platforms, or on our website, radio.cgtn.com.
You're listening to The Bridge.
Well, really quickly, COP28 is ongoing. And so COP28 is environmentalists and world leaders from around the world meet in Dubai. And they talk about three primary things, but there's dozens of issues related to these. One of them is preventing the Earth from heating 1.5 degrees Celsius by 2050. And I read this on their website. Number 2 is helping poor communities deal with the impacts of global warming as they begin to affect them. And number 3 is stopping all fossil fuel emissions by 2050, which is not probably realistic. But there's all these other related issues. And when we're talking about reusing things, circular living, right, zero waste, we're talking about that too, because it takes fossil fuels to produce your t-shirt, to produce your mug, to even recycle. I know a lot of people love recycling, but recycling uses a lot of water and a lot of energy, and unless you're living in Greenland, I think they're the only country in the world that has zero emissions because there's 200,000 people there or something. But, you know, basically...
That's still amazing, though.
Yeah, basically, if you are using any product at all, in any way, you are negatively impacting the environment. And so, if we want to help the environment, it's not just turning the lights off, but it's also buying less t-shirts, less coffee mugs.
Or everything else.
Yeah, everything else. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right.
I think mentally we need to, I guess, shift gears a little bit. Like, at least we need to learn to initiate these shifts. I think looking back, we've been so soaked in consumerism for the past few decades that a lot of us...
Oh yeah, my entire life.
I know,
right.
but then see, we didn't realize this until pretty recently, right? Like in the past few years.
Right.
In the past few years, I learned that, so I was once just a citizen or a person, and then somehow I turned into a consumer. You know, in all kinds of big data, I am one of the consumers. And there's like a whole bunch of numbers, preferences related to this identity. And as if the whole point of my existence is that I consume and other people make money, and then the whole thing, circulate in that way. So we need to jump out of that mindset. And also the way people talk about the economy. We hear this in the news all the time. How it has to grow.
Yeah.
As is.
I'm one of those people.
Yeah, but then maybe it's not that bad. It just slows down a little bit because everything comes at a price. You know, and by now, most of us, right, at least middle class, right, upper class, we have more than enough. I've been saying this forever, on the show, and I tell that myself. This is the truth. Look at our apartments. It's like stuffed with stuff, right? Decades ago, back in the 80s when I was little, we had like maybe 1/60th of the things we have now.
Now.
We wanted it more. I have too much. The reason why I don't buy a lot now is because I just don't want to deal with them anymore. Like if I buy a lot more clothing, where am I supposed to put them? And I don't want to throw them away. So anyhow, my point is we're so used to this kind of consumerism, right? All around us. But
maybe let's just ease off a little bit.
Well, there's a movement.
And
Have you heard of degrowth?
degrowth.
No. So there's a movement of people using this hashtag and this nomenclature online called degrowth. And so the concern between the growthers, I guess, just no doubt me, the growthers, people, okay, so the concern for people who want the GDP to grow is that, hey, we have people in impoverished parts of the world and country, right? And we want to make sure that growth encapsulates them so that they can get their minimum Maslow. Okay, too many ideas. Maslow's basic laws, right? That everyone needs to have shelter, you know, food, water, clothes, those basic necessities, even access to healthcare. So this is like the first threshold of things that everyone should have access to. Unfortunately, because of the structure of the world, people don't. So a lot of people who are GDP growth focused, you know, that's our focus is we want that growth to eventually encapsulate all people so that they are able to meet this first threshold of Maslow's theory of needs. And that means everyone should have shelter, everyone should have clothes, everyone should have clean water and you know, good, healthy food and access to medical care and a good education. Now, you're talking about is a relatively new idea, and this goes back to toxic capitalism by our friend Gilbert, is that we need to actually degrow the economy so that we're not consuming all these excess things. You know, these little trinkets and plastic Pikachos that are sitting around your home and things. They're superfluous, unnecessary, they're bad for the environment. They're not helping, you know, someone in an impoverished country. So getting these two ideas that we need to help grow impoverished regions and we need to stop wealthy regions from over-consuming, putting them together is actually much more complicated than I think most people understand.
Realize, yeah. But I think this theory just mentioned how, you know, the economies have to grow so that we can lift poor people out of poverty. I feel like this might be an excuse for the rich to become richer, because I think there must be better ways of helping the poor people, right? For example, in China, we have targeted poverty alleviation. The idea is, well, of course, the whole economy grows, but you can't just leave it to that to help the poorest people, right? The economy grows, and then you need to spend extra energy and pay extra attention to the people at the bottom. You need to actually think of particular ways to help them according to their local situation. It's more like if the economy keeps growing at 8%, then the ones at the bottom will naturally be lifted up. Yes, maybe, but maybe not. So I think across the world it's the same thing. Right? You can't say, okay, like if the economy of the US or Europe or China keep growing by like 2, 3, 5, you know, 5, 6, 7, 8%, then the people off in really poor countries, their lives won't be better. Maybe not. It might take forever for it to get them. So I think sometimes that's an excuse. It needs to be more targeted and more, what's the word, like refined methods to help the poor. But anyway, I think that you're actually touching on exactly what needs to happen. We, as a collect civilization, you know, people at the tip of the spear, you know, people like Eric Solheim and, you know, leaders around the world need to, and you know, the leaders down there, they need to talk about how to target poverty alleviation at the same time, reducing our cultural, you know, dependency on superfluous goods. But, you know, speaking of poverty, both my grandmas, they lived in poverty for decades. And what I learned from them is actually they didn't really complain all that much about being poor when they were, you know, younger. But what I noticed, they were happy with the way they recycled things. They were happy with the way they used things to their utmost capability. I remember, like, my grandmother, who is from my dad's side, she's like 96 now and still healthy, which is, you know, very lucky. I remember how frugal she was. It was one time when I was little, I was visiting her in the village, and whenever she saw like half a nail or like a little bit of cotton, because they farmed and they grew like cotton plants, and they would actually pick the cotton, you know, the cotton balls like on the plants. And sometimes they're like,
my mother did that.
Yeah, little pieces here and there in the house, and she would, you know, whenever she saw them, she would pick them up. She didn't consider them as just like garbage trash to be swept away. You know, she picked up everything that could be used. Years, our lives were so much more wealthier, more comfortable, right? Not really wealthy, but comfortable. Wealthier. But she kept her ways, like exactly. She never wasted anything. And then I realized that it wasn't about money for them. Maybe at the beginning it was about money, but in their bones, like in their soul, they believed in using everything to their fullest capacity. Use everything to their fullest capacity. They believed in the virtue of this. It wasn't just they were constrained monetarily, like they didn't have financially. There was just one side of it. Even if my grandmother was a millionaire, she would still live the way she did, not wasting anything. So you know what I mean here, Jason? Like by now, a lot of us have forgotten that. When we have money, we spend, we consume, we waste. But not so for my grandmas. You know, if I just give them a heap of gold, they'll still live in their frugal way.
My wife's grandmother is exactly the same way. She lives out in the countryside in China. In what, a lot of, people who live in cities would say, oh my gosh, let's help her live with us or whatever it takes, right? We've offered her that opportunity. And she's like, no, I don't want to live there. I like it here. She's like,
she will beat you away with her cane. Like,
she does her own farming in the spring, and I'm talking a couple acres just for her, and she's like, anyways, you're exactly the same. My grandmother in America, exactly the same. They would go out and collect wool that had been discarded from the train tracks by the workers, and then they would bring that back, and my grandfather would weld into other things.
Amazing.
So they were literally reusing steel that they just found on the roadside.
I want to mention one more grandma, okay? Sure. I read in a book. It's based by a book by a Japanese stand-up comedian. I think he was a really popular stand-up comedian. And he wrote a book about his grandmother, who was so poor back in the days in Japanese village. And she would walk around, every day, wherever she walked, with a magnet attached to her body. She would attach a piece of magnet and tie that with a string to her waist everywhere she walked, so that they would collect any metal, that would stick to the magnet. You know what I mean? Like if she walked and there's half a nail lying on the ground, it would stick to that magnet. Yeah, every day, she would bring whatever she could collect back home. And
you could say she had a magnetic personality.
She did. She was a wonderful person. Yeah. You know what? If people can go to that extent, there's a lot more that we can do in today's world.
Well, we talked about in previous episodes people using clotheslines, air drying in Asia versus we have. So there's all kinds of ways that I think our previous generations of people were much more thrifty and frugal. And maybe we've just gotten really used to having excess. And maybe part of it's TV, movies, Hollywood, they're telling us, oh, you need this brand new thing, you need advertising. And especially young people are very susceptible to this. Because for you and me, it's we can change our lifestyle to whatever. But young people are insecure, and they're looking for a partner, and they feel like, I need this to attract a partner. So they're out there spending money, they're at the mall, they're buying expensive things, because that's what they think is going to allow them, facilitate them the opportunity to be impressive to someone that they're trying to court.
Now that you mentioned this, I was just thinking about it at lunch. I was thinking about how people who are really confident, people who are confident about their look, the way they are, the things they do, they care less about what other people think about them, right? They will spend less time buying new clothes or buying new bags so that other people think they look beautiful or that they are wealthy, they're loaded. People who are already confident just don't spend much energy doing that. But anyhow, young people, we were destined at one certain stage of our lives. We were like that too a little bit. But I do have more hope in today's young generation and the younger generations of the future because they grew up in such abundance. So they don't have to spend like my parents had growing up. They felt like they never had enough. And I think this mentality is still in my mom's psyche somewhere. Even though it's obvious that she has more than enough in everything, but there's still this idea of this feeling of scarcity, maybe because she lived through it for so long. But the younger generation, they don't have that baggage, right? They have enough, they have enough. And also, I think in the future, just as we mentioned in this article, there's going to be trends that will make recycling or reusing things cool and trendy. Maybe it's not going to be so cool if you are dressed in Zara or in Chanel.
Sorry, Zara, sorry.
Maybe I can think of. But if you go out in a piece of tweed jacket that you remodeled from the one your grandma had, right? And then you can pair that with something your mom had when she was younger, that's going to be the cool thing. And you did that with a sewing machine, right, yourself.
If you go to the Hutong area next to Beihai, there are now thrift stores, which are, very popular in the United States.
Right.
They're becoming popular here in Beijing. I tried to go in one. I love it. There's a little window. And I thought, oh my goodness, they have some hats I really want. They're just amazing, like old man hats. I tried to get in, but it was so full of like 20-something women that were like oogling over everything and buying up the store. And there was like a line of 5 young ladies and, young schweigas, handsome men, trying to get in there that I gave up. I was just like, oh, there's no way. I'm too old to fight through this crowd of young kids to get this hat. So
I was actually wondering about that because I have not seen that many secondhand stores in Beijing. Or actually,
there are.
In China in general. I don't know if there's like some laws, regulations about selling secondhand stuff here in China. Nope. Maybe we can look into that. Because I think it would be really cool to have more of the following things in China, like in Beijing, especially in big cities. First is like thrift stores, right? And the second is like these shops that fixes things. We talked about this before, remember?
They have those. They totally have those. I know you and I and Dorford sat around and talked about it. I've noticed they're already kind of are those. But they're just, instead of being like you and your friends, what they are is these old men who ride around on these like motorized vehicles or bicycles sometimes with them screaming in the middle of the Hutong, or they have like some kind of speaker sometimes that says, I'm fixing things, bring your things here, I'm fixing, and
I used to hear that when I was little, but now I haven't heard that for decades, and I miss that. Maybe just...
In Xidang, they have it everywhere, yeah.
Are they all just doing it for show, or are they really doing it for business?
No, you can bring down your toaster, your microwave, whatever it is, and open it up and start, like,
I want a shop like that nearby.
fixing it right there in front of you, yeah.
Remember my broken vacuum cleaner? Yeah. And my broken, 10 other stuff? So this morning, my water boiler stopped working. Like, something in its line just went off.
Yeah.
But I think it's fun. If someone just, if there's a shop nearby that has a ticket to, I would love to do that. Not because it will save a lot of money, because they're not expensive to get new ones. But I can't keep wasting stuff like this. Well, where's that shop? I need a shop like that nearby.
One thing that we do have a lot more of here in China than they have in the U.S., and this is one of our strategic advantages, is seamstresses and seamsters. Oh, really good. These people, work in the Levi's factory, literally. And so you bring your Levi's there, and when you leave, it's going to be, perfect, right? So $3, it's nothing. So if you want to have something hemmed, you don't have to go somewhere expensive. You can just go to your local anywhere. There's 10 within walking distance in every direction of my home, anywhere in Beijing. And you can just go in and give them anything and say, this is what I want to... I'll give you a strange example of how capable these people are. I went in with a Pikachu jumpsuit.
What is that?
So
Pikachu? What's that?
Pikachu is a Japanese cartoon character that is adorable.
Oh, I know. That yellow thing?
Yeah, I bought one, the biggest size they have. But I'm a big guy, so it didn't fit me. So I went to them and I was like, I need you to make this bigger. And they were like, yeah, come back in, tomorrow at the same time. I came back tomorrow at the same time, gave them 20 kwai. What's that, $3? $3. And they had added new fabrics to different places that made it big enough that it fit me perfect. So I was able to wear this as my winter attire for a couple seasons,
Seriously?
Yeah, so I'm walking around the house. Yeah.
Did the guys at the shop look at you with weird glances, but held back from saying anything?
There was an old lady, and that was just it. She was just one old lady, and she was more like, you need to lose weight. And I was like, yeah, but I'm not going to lose weight by tomorrow. Can you just let it out a little? And she's like, okay, I'll let it out. You lose weight. And then we come back tomorrow at the same time.
She didn't even know you, right?
No, not at all.
That's the funny thing about, China. Because if you say that in the U.S., I think you'll get sued.
Right, yeah, people
somebody will, throw rocks at your store.
Yeah, but in China, people are very honest about stuff like that.
Well, especially because they care about you, Or else they just wouldn't say anything. But it takes people some time to get used to it.
Right, yeah. It's not the first time this has been said to me in Asia.
If I go to that lady's shop, I think she'll point at my face and say, you need to wash your face. Wash your hair. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so but you can have anything done. I mean, I've literally been to ones where I've said, can you make me a jacket like this jacket? Like, show them a jacket that you have. Could you make one like this? And they're like, yeah, no problem. Look at it. Sure, what do you want to make? I mean, that's how good these people are at this stuff. You know, in America, you want to have a custom think made in America, you're talking $1,000. In China, you're talking like $30, $50.
So this is a really good idea, but I think people who don't know China as well probably don't know about this part. Like, as you mentioned, seamstress or these shops where they custom-made clothing, right? So the suits, my husband has 2 suits, and he has had 2 suits for the past 12 years.
Hey, he's already living a circular lifestyle.
I know that because he made that for our wedding. Wow. So we went into one of these shops. Where is that? Like Sunny Tour.
Oh, Stanley Tour, yeah.
Yeah, Sunny Tour, somewhere there. Yeah. And we found the shop. So I made a qipao, which is like, traditional Chinese dress. And we found this nice fabric for and so she made 2 sets. And 12 years later, they are still like spanking new. Yeah. There's like, I don't know, he wears those, like one of those 2 suits to every single meeting for the past decade. And they're still in perfect shape, nice and new.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
And they cost it, like less than 100 per piece? And that's for material and everything. Yeah. And the shirts we made at that time, they're still, like, nice and new. This is just amazing. I don't know if the shop is still there, but we want to go back and maybe more in the future. They're just so much nicer than the pricey ones. Because if you go to the shops and you want nice suits, that costs you thousands of RMB, right? Hundreds of dollars.
Any listeners who live in Beijing or are thinking about visiting Beijing, I would like to give you a couple tips about getting nice clothes made. Go to the place I can assume that you're talking about, but there is one in Yongnanli, which is on line 1, west of Guamao. So you go to Yongnanli Station, there's a place called the Silk Market. Go to the Silk Market, 3rd floor, there's a bunch of seamsters and seamstresses there that can make anything you want, anything you can imagine, they can make it. The first price that they offer you, don't for about a fourth of whatever they say. So they'll say, oh, you want a new suit made? We'll make you a really nice suit at 6,000. And then you can probably back them down to 1,200 or something.
Okay, that sounds decent.
Yeah. We're talking about 3 pieces here. I think for a whole thing. Anything you want.
Right. We said the 3-piece thing. Yeah, but he never wore those styles. Was it the back? Yeah, that's like, because I guess it's so not Chinese. He's never worn those. Yeah. So anyhow, I do want to get to mention this concept of the circular economy because it's actually a new concept for me. I know about recycle, reuse, and recovery, but I didn't know there's a term and a concept of circular economy. Now, to understand that, we need to start with the linear economy. Linear as in upside down, going forward. And I found this really good article. It's called "Learn the Basics of Circular Living." It's a hard-to-read website. So anyhow, it's introduced. Sure. So it's the linear economy, which is producing items that were only meant for single-use consumption, like teapots or the electrical vehicles. I guess the common way people use it is you buy it, you use it, maybe 3 years later it breaks and then you throw it away. And we are so used to this. But the circular economy is like, hey, let's change this mindset a little bit, right? And it's not just about a mindset. It needs a community of supporting shops and people with certain skills to be able for us to reorganize things or refurbish things and fix things that we need. So I don't think it's a new term for me, but I just want to introduce it to our audience who have not heard of it. So the circular economy reduces the consumption and waste of resources, like raw materials, water, energy, everything we use in our daily lives, while focusing on increasing the life of products and services. So whatever you have, we also think about how can I make it last longer, right? Even before you buy this, how long will this last? Like the piece of clothing, how long do you think I can wear this, right? Or if my daughter can wear this in the future, things like that. So it's, change your thinking in minor ways. And the objective of the circular economy is to retain the value of things, to give it further value and extend the life cycle of products and materials. And that's how we work towards a sustainable world. And I think there is, you get this rewarding feeling. Let's say you pull out after 20 years. You know, it's still in your wardrobe and it's still looking nice. And I think that it's like an old friend already. You know what I mean? It's no longer just a piece of clothing sitting there.
If it gets a rip, don't throw it out. Go get it fixed. Or learn how to fix it.
Like a nice dress.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it will become something that's like custom made already.
Right. You know, people buy jeans with holes in them. So,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And your grandma, she will try to pack it up. Exactly.
Actually, that's a funny idea for a video. We could make a video where someone buys a brand new pair of torn up jeans and they give it to their grandma for Chinese New Year. And then when grandma gives them back after she's washed, they're all sewn up. I fixed it for you.
And she wipes away her tears and thinking that my grandson is so poor, living in the city, off somewhere. He can't even afford a new pair of pants.
That way, sure you did. It's okay.
Why would you do it? You should ask your money back.
I also have this It's from the BBC. It's where that term zero waste comes from. This is People Living Circular Low Waste Lives. It's November 2023, and in it has 5 tips for low waste living, and it's based on community. So number 1, when shopping online, avoid impulse buys. That's me. Number 2, set achievable, measurable goals. So that means okay, next week when I go shopping, instead of buying a plastic bag with beans and dried beans, I will bring my own container and fill it with the beans and because they have that in China. I think they have that in the U.S. too. Number 3, get friends and family involved. So if you're in your nuclear family, get them to support this idea. Say, hey family, this is what we're going to be doing. And then 4, find local sources of sustainable, secondhand, and zero waste goods. That means, so you want to go shopping? Don't think I'm going to go to Zara. I'm sorry, we've been very hard on you, Zara. Very sorry. But you can go to one of these thrift stores that in the ones that I was talking about. Collective action. So that means building a sustainable community, which is what you were talking about in the article that you're reading, David. Which means maybe helping support your local. So someone opens a thrift shop in your local town, in your local village. Go there. Help their community. Tell your friends about it. Tell them, your friends, where it is. That they should go there. That stuff is cool.
And maybe you will meet your annoying neighbor there too, and you guys can have a chat. So this is actually a really important point because this whole movement, this whole trend of isn't just about extending the lifespan of products. It's also about rebuilding communities.
Yeah.
And I think I really want to reinforce this idea in another article named, hold on 1 second. So in this article titled globalcitizen.org, and the name is What is a Circular Economy Benefit? One of the things it mentioned is meaningful environmental and social justice. So linear economy, as we mentioned before, treats human and environmental resources as disposable commodities and enables extreme exploitation, violence, and poverty. Right? We all understand that.
Yeah.
But a truly circular economy will be premised on human flourishing, and these harms will be systematically stopped. And this is where the article says the narrow lens of recycling materials expands to encompass the concept of transition away from harmful industries and activities, and in the process helping us to rebuild economies, helping people to reconnect. Instead of always buying industrialized products with what ingredients, right? Let's go back to your local shops, right? If you or like in Canada, you know how people sometimes in markets they'll fix your shoes for like literally 80 cents or like $1.
Yeah.
In earlier years, I would take my shoes to. Is that what you call them? Shoemaker?
It used to be called shoemaker, but I think that was the nature. Actually, my father's mother, Lila, my grandmother, her family name before she was married was shoemaker because that's the old term. But now there is actually a new term. I think it's cobbler. They were both terms, but cobbler took over and shoemake was discarded.
Okay, it's the same meaning.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to, in China and also hopefully elsewhere, where the community start to thrive again. Because with urbanization, everything becomes like shiny and clean, and there's less mess everywhere, but then there's less vitality. We used to have more markets, and the market is not just people selling vegetables or meat or eggs and things like that. People who would fix clothing for you, like a seamstress shop, like a shoe shop, and a little shop with like all kinds of miscellaneous stuff, it's so convenient. You know, after work on your way home, you get everything you need in that market. And you get a chat with people you're familiar with, your neighbors and your kids, friends. So there's that aspect to it, that human aspect to it. It isn't just about the products. You know what I mean? Yeah?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Situated along the ancient Silk Road, where fine arts and divine beliefs merged with the natural world. It's where the East and West interacted, and where the world's largest Buddhist art gallery still fascinates and amazes people today. Where stories of life and death, love and hatred, passion and desire, faith and sacrifice have been generated and told for 2,000 years. Dunhuang, a place born in affections. Buckle up for our new podcast, Why We Love Dunhuang, the one and only podcast that can take you to the fantasy world of Dunhuang and beyond through our audio tour. Listen and subscribe to the Why We Love Dunhuang podcast for free on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and all other major podcast platforms. Why We Love Dunhuang? You will have your answers.
You're listening to The Bricks.
One of the things that people like is to have new clothes, new things. And so there's another article here, and I'm not sure how useful it is because I actually don't care if my clothes are the same thing I've been wearing for years, but some people might. This is from Earth Fashion by Anna Santi, How to Update Your Wardrobe Easily. And she mentions, alterations. So you could dye your clothes. Or it's called upcycling, where you just repair or reuse something and make it new. You could actually take an old garment and de-seam it and re-seam it as a new garment. You could take your dress and turn it into a scarf, for example.
I can't, but other people maybe can. I don't have the skill.
My grandmother, who I've mentioned 3 times now, Grandma Smith, Grandma formerly shoemaker, she actually could do that. She would collect old clothes from my aunt Anita, and Aunt Anita didn't want this anymore, so she would give it to Grandma Smith. Grandma Smith would turn it into a blanket, or a pillowcase, or and she would give it back to Anita and say, look what I made for you. And Anita would be like thrilled to get this new, amazing thing that was made out of her old dress.
And it keeps them busy, right? It nags you less, and it makes them feel like they're still being productive. You know, my cousin bought me a very fancy sewing machine for like over $200 about 10 years ago. Wow. And it's still sitting there because I have not figured out how to do it. But I think someday... She was like, this is the simplest model I could find.
You could just go on Douyin. Watch like, a few hours of sewing videos, and you'll be a master by tomorrow.
But the thing is, like, when it comes to making clothing, it's like so much more complicated than it looks. Because when I look at t-shirts, it seems like just like 2 pieces of clothing, you just sew it together, right? But it's actually like so much more details. Maybe after I retire, I think there will be something fun to do because you can make dresses and suits for not just you, but your kids and the grandkids. And I think they will be really proud, to wear something that you can't even get in a shop. And also it helps.
Grandma Baby made this.
Yeah. And also speaking of dyeing clothing, my daughter does that every day. Like she has, quote unquote, dyed every piece of her clothing with like paint, dirt, other mysterious materials. Every day she comes back, her uniform looks a little bit different. So what's the case? It's a testament to the fun process that takes place, at the same time.
Like when I was a kindergarten teacher, one thing we would upcycle is every year, beginning of the year, we would have all the parents into the room to tell them what our expectations were for the year and how we were going to match the class. And we would say, okay, we would insist, both parents are there for this meeting, and one of the things we would ask of fathers is, every father needs to provide one t-shirt they'll no longer wear. And then when we do painting and stuff, we put that on their child, because it basically, you know, a dad's t-shirt covers the entire kindergarten. Basically saved.
So it's more like a smock? Is that...
Well, sure, but it's just the t-shirt, so they basically look like little ghosts, you know, because it's their...
Oh.
Barely sticking out and the dad's shirt's dragging along the floor or whatever.
And speaking of the fashion industry, I did not know how much damage they do to the environment until our shows like months ago. And in this one of the articles we have today, it also mentioned that in its current form, the fashion industry largely operates using a linear model, which is if you buy something, use it for a while, and then you throw it away, right? So every...
Yeah, well that's their dream. They would be so thrilled if that always happened.
Exactly. So every year, more than 100 billion items of new clothing are made.
What?
100
billion?
Yeah.
There's 10 pieces of clothing for every person made every year?
Yeah, and that's very few.
Wow.
Right? Maybe somewhere like Paris Hilton would be like 10,000 a year. Who knows, right? Only 92 million tons of annual textile waste is sent to landfill, in part because only 1% of textiles is currently recycled back into clothing. So most of the textile we use are reused again. And with the fashion industry contributing up to 10% of global carbon emissions. Did you know that? The fashion industry contributes up to 10% of global carbon emissions. That's amazing.
One of the things that some of these companies do, I can't remember the name of the company, if they are not able to sell all of their product, they don't just donate it or something or send it to like, you know, some place where it can be reused where there's poverty. They literally burn it. And we're talking about thousands of tons of clothing. They're like, okay, this shirt wasn't as popular as we thought, so they incinerate it. They literally incinerate excess clothing that they can't sell because they're worried that if they give it away to poor communities, that will devalue the quality, their image of their company. They're literally worried about poor people wearing their clothes will make the value of their clothing drop.
That's a great example of the capitalistic system, right? That's just how it works. I'd rather see some people starve than, you know, give things away because that will affect their bottom line. One of the companies, or I think this might be a movement, Rebecca Early, who is a professor of circular design futures. There's a profession, I guess there's like a field of study called circular design futures. That's cool. From University College London. She's the co-founder of World Circular Textiles Day. A day designated for that. And she says this is the area ripe for entrepreneurs. You know, the recycling of textile. And she said the adverts, so I guess that means advertisements, from brands that came through my social media feeds were one of the biggest challenges to stop buying new clothes. So she actually just unsubscribed from them because every time you know, turn on your cell phone, you go look at, like in China, people go to Taobao or Jingdong, right, to shop. There are always things popping up. Jingdong. See, maybe that's your
I love Jingdong.
They're really fast delivery. So many things we bought.
Well, you don't get necessary things. Yeah, they haven't. We bought a fire extinguisher for the house in Jingdong.
Okay. I've never bought any fire extinguisher. I buy my beads from Jingdong, and it gets there like the next day.
Well, they have fire extinguishers in the apartment hallway, but I'm worried because Summer, my wife, burns incense. So I got a fire extinguisher for inside the house so that we would have a faster reaction time. And then I made sure she knew how to use it.
I could see Jason pointing that fire extinguisher at the Buddha statue. Like, oh, it's getting ready.
Oh, no.
Whatever. Anyhow, hopefully you'll never, use it, okay?
Yeah.
Incense should be okay. So anyhow, I think there's so many ideas we can, put to action in our daily lives. As long as you are aware of the fact that we are changing from circular economy, we're changing from linear economy and this linear mindset to circular ones. And I do have a strong hope for the younger generation. I have hope for their creativity, right? I think they will be able to think up new ideas.
Yeah.
They will be able to think up new trends. For example, how to make clothing fashionable again, right? Because fashion is recycled anyway. I mean, if you look at like fashion magazines from decades ago, they might look very similar to what people are promoting today. It's like after a couple decades, things come back again, right? So I look forward to their creativity and to the new trends they're going to start, because I think these are so powerful. I think in one article I read that these social trends are even stronger than lobby, in promoting.
Well, I wanted to actually talk about that because I have an article here by, I think it's called Deloitte. I was told I was mispronouncing that, but the company Deloitte, Deloitte, maybe? Anyways, the Sustainable Consumer 2023. So they put this out every year, and exactly what you said is exactly what they're saying. That because consumers are increasingly aware of the global environment, and especially young consumers, they put out a list of things companies can do to sell their products better. So given this new environment, number one is lead with transparency, and number three is bring circularity into your value chain, and then also down below it says, in summary, these are our key findings, and a couple of them are, on balance, more consumers have adopted a sustainable lifestyle in 2023 compared with a year ago. So they're basically saying you need to be aware that your consumers, this is all companies in the world, that your consumers are aware of their choices, and they're going to not choose you if you're destroying the environment, basically. Number two is the rising cost of living, so that is especially true in Europe and the United States, and more consumers are taking sustainability into consideration when making choices. So it's not just you and me, it's actually like millions, hundreds of millions of people around the world are looking at their choices and thinking, whoa, we need to make better choices for the environment. So this isn't just us on our podcast anymore. This is everybody. And so
we're not that special anymore. But that's okay. I'm happy. And
I'm thrilled that this is taking off.
So there are other people out there who also get excited when they find new biodegradable plastic garbage bags. Like I do. Yeah, I think it's a good thing.
Right. Yes, exactly.
A couple things.
Maybe not a 10-year-old child, though.
You know what? Think of clever ways you can make them. You can, I guess, inject fun energy into a lot of things. And then this particular thing will become trendy and cool, and then young people will be attracted to it. So another point I want to mention is that we can learn to attach a meaning to what we do, even if it's simple things as like recycling or reusing or other appliances. It's not just the action itself. If we remind ourselves the reason behind it, right? Or in other words, the thing itself might be small, but the
在那之前，我们还有足够的时间去想象、去猜测，为中华文明多元一体、交融包容的印记和未来。很高兴我们又愉快地坐在了这一晚。节目监制李轩，撰稿韩寒，制作郑金口，责编楚源大梦。感谢您的收听，我是郭靖，下周五广州。